right, sorry about that. We got the connections. It ended up ending our stream all of a sudden. So we're just gonna make sure that everything is back up and running.
Yep, looks like it.
Yeah. And even YouTube. And even YouTube. Okay. Let's just go back over here. Okay. So we're back. Um okay, so I guess where did we end? Oh, yeah. I ended saying that if you wanted to follow Matthew, even though he does not have a Twitch stream, you follow us here on Twitch. And that way you get to see more of Matthew. He'll be coming on the show, I would say, pretty or often. So that's a way to, hey, to follow Matthew and to also support the channel. All right. So with that being said, let's move on to this question. It says, aside from the stereotypes in speaking like a black person, I don't see a problem of playing a black character as a white person. And so kind of going off of what we were just saying, then why do you like my question is then why would you want to be a black person if you but that's the thing is like you can't be like if you can't be or use what you would perceive to be as blackness or black, then what value are you bringing other than you feeling like being nice that you're wearing a black exterior, which can be can be a thing. Like I understand, I hear it. I guess we said to get out, but being self-aware of it, because what happens is if there's no black people there at all, and again we're talking about the role playing, not just hey I'm playing this game. What's the name of that game with the two couples or like where you can choose, you know, or only has you be a black woman? Like what game is that?
Haven?
Was it Haven? I don't know. So Haven is a game like that.
I think so.
Okay. Haven. Like, you think I look at you strange because, hey, you're a white dude playing Haven? No. I would actually think that was pretty cool. Oh, look at you playing a game as the black character. You know, having no shame, having fun, thinking past it, right? The but just but saying which is not the same as I'm going to create this whole black character because I want to, I guess, not be a black person, but to look like a black person. And then that, to me, how is that different than blackface? How is that different than uh, in taking the opportunities from actual black people or people of color? I mean, in a positive realm. Like I'm saying, in these servers, having an environment where I walk around and see, like, if I run into black, let's say I go into this server, these servers, I'm walking around, hey, look for other black people, but those are catfish. Those aren't actual black people. So I'm talking to white people who are black, acting as. Do you realize how that doesn't make an actual black person feel comfortable? And how in many ways that is counterintuitive to bringing more black people into your space. I mean, these are just things to think about. Again, it's not. I'm not coming at it from a judgment. I want this to be a platform and what is it? A community where we can talk about these things and start these questions. But just thinking like, what, like, why? Why? Like, if you couldn't do it in real life, why are you trying to do it on the game? And then realize you want to do it so bad, why are you only able to do it here? Or if it was bad to do in real life, why is it not as bad to do here? Or you're trying to make it like an exception and to feel like, oh, well, this is a new space, I can get in and try to get plausible deniability to make it feel better. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing blackface because I'm not acting black. I'm just having a black costume. Like literally I'm wearing a black looking person. Like that is me. Like as but it's okay because I'm not going to try to pull any black traits or anything. It's just weird. It just goes back to why. Matthew, am I making sense? I feel like I'm repeating myself. You got like what are you?
No, I think that makes sense.
All right, like I know, like for me, I love, of course, all people, all races, ethnicities. That's just who I am. I love people. I love them. Would it be interesting, like in a random world, in like where let's say we have superpowers or some weird phenomenon happens, and you end up just finger snaps, woof, you're into another person's body. When you think about it, I'm like, oh, that might be an interesting experience. I don't know if I'd actually, but I mean, that might be interesting. I can get that, but also knowing that one, that's not real and that type of thing doesn't happen. And two, just because I would find it interesting doesn't mean that I could go in feeling like if that thing, it happened, I would feel awkward because there is something that is lost from an experience because we all grew up in this world that has all these issues, right? The culture is a certain way, like people are treated differently based upon how they look. Now in a utopia world where that was never the case and racism, class never existed, and maybe, right, maybe because there's no jokes that nothing can play, you're just, hey, it would be interesting to have a different quote unquote skin, right, or a different look. You have nothing is linked to it. There's no pre-biases. There's not all the stuff that Hollywood and everything has put into us at this state. If you got into this, state in your life being, we already have it. There's no way we can, it acting as if we lived in this utopia world, or why can't we just act like everyone is and just, is again erasing a truth. It's erasing an experience. It's erasing a, yeah, I get that experience. It's like it's taking away, and not just that. It's not as true. And so, am I saying, hey, oh, hello, so I looked down at the comments. You said you role play as a black girl in real life. So are you a black girl? I'm leaning on it that maybe not, but just wanting to confirm. If you can put in the chat, are you a black woman or a black girl? Okay, well, I wait for you to respond. Not respond. My question would be why? If you're not a black girl, why do you play as a black girl? I mean, that's my genuine question. I want to know.
I think they just meant to spell black, IRL.
I role play
Not
as
as
black
a-
in real life.
as a
Oh! IRL. Thank you. See, I'm not a boomer. I'm not old. I role play as a black in real life. Interesting. See how it kind of takes us to this current space where we're like, well, I guess even using the terms as a black is kind of problematic. Yeah, being honest. I would say as a black person, but then my thing is, why do you have to role play? Like that's my thing is this feeling of wanting to put on another's experience. Um, it's a little weird. I mean, I would say, Matthew, what are your thoughts? As you know, we've been talking.
Mm, not sure I have too many other thoughts on this particular issue
Um, let's say,
that you haven't already said.
yeah. What would you say the difference is playing a character that happens to be another race versus role playing as a character from another race? Is there a difference?
Um, well, I mean, if you're talking about like in a video game where you're just playing another race and there's a set story that's, there and you're just playing the video game, there's not much you can do about that. And I feel like, it goes into kind of like movies where, there are movies marketed towards black audiences that white people see, and I think that's fine and probably good. Um, and
That
it's,
yes,
in many ways they're living that experience through that movie.
which can be problematic
And
because
so, why?
you look at who's actually writing and directing the scripts.
Yeah, that's true.
I meant, yeah, and who the people are, right?
Um,
But yes, that's essentially what television has done. It allows
yeah,
us as humans to see different perspectives, but also realizing how much power that is and how it could be used as a tool of misinformation and used to stereotype people and make people seem as though they're something that they actually aren't in real life. But it's because it was put in a place of power, right? It was put on or approved by somebody who had a lot of money, right? And says, hey, you can make this as a movie. Here, we're putting it onto television. Here, it must be, it was cleared by the people right at the top. It's a fine, it's just a movie, right? How that can be problematic in and of itself, and we've seen it in many ways. The most how we've had racism like ingrained in us the most has been through media. It's been through television. Um, so just make continue. Sorry, I feel like with what you were saying.
um, uh, but then I guess it's kind of different if you're talking about like from a role play perspective, because that person is actually making the experiences of that character. And so you're not like held down to what the creators intended. You're sort of the creator in that sense, and thus you have all of the pressure of having that creative leeway to do what you want, but also knowing that just like how movies and such can be problematic, your own creations can be problematic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And dare I say, because oftentimes problematic has gotten to the roles of, or when it comes to the role of, oh, I said it earlier, casting director, right? Because I'm like, even if you do put a whole lot of work into an experience, right, of a person, not of you, which again is weird because it's not like it's The Sims where you kind of can just create a character and it acts on its own, right? We're not talking about Sims in that regard because, again, if you would like to have a whole black family in Sims, interesting. Why not? I mean, not why not, but it'd be like, okay, not. It's still not the same as doing a, because you in Sims you can choose their actions, but the mannerisms that you don't have that defined on them. Like they kind of act like all the other characters. There isn't like a race factor put into, you creating a sim. But if you're creating a role play character in Grand Theft Auto, then it's different in that, like, I would put it as the role of a casting director. You cast yourself to play a black man. Like like a casting director looking at a white man and saying, "You're going to play the role of a black man." I would say that is a bad casting director, or that's a bad casting move. It doesn't align up. And I think that kind of boils, like, I guess, boiling it down, the root of it too is kind of thinking of it from that perspective. Because here, Hassan, right? Remember we watched that a little while ago, right? Hassan saying how he feels like here with Abu, or like the Abu character, um, it doesn't matter if you have a black or a white person playing an Indian voice or not. It's just they get paid, which I can't even see. Like, that's such a link to it. Like the fact that you having white people play people of color is detrimental in that they don't even already have the same opportunities. There's already limited roles, and then you're snatching even those roles away from them, and that opportunity to make money. And that's supposed to be a character created for a person walking through that experience. So you think, why in the world would you do that if not to try to erase or replace a person of color? I don't see how there's any kind of, yeah, that's a good thing to do. That's perfectly fine. Right? Like, how, if, does that not just continue that oppression? Right? Does it not? It continues people not having jobs in their fields, or for there to be inaccurate representations of people of color. And I feel like this Grand Theft Auto is not doing anything to help. It's very similar. If anything, it's putting more, like, quote unquote, judgment on the one individual, whereas before with Hollywood, you could place it, oh, it's the directors, the writers, oh, the people need a job. Now, no, it's just you. You're sitting there at your computer. You don't have to do something that's outside of yourself and who you are. You don't have to create this funny character who, no, like, that's all on you. So you chose to cast yourself as XYZ. And we have take on and understand the problematicness to it. And I guess my biggest takeaway from this conversation is I just kind of wake people up who do or play these games as white people.
I would say too.
Mm,
I would say too. It's kind of like, I feel like a lot of people also just feel nervous because they want to include people of diversity. Um, but you know, especially in these type of
mm-hmm.
games like the role-playing server, whose job is it to do the outreach to, you know, black people so that it is more inclusive, so that, you know, people are more checked on, you know, their actions. And I would think that, you know, some of these streamers that do roleplay as black characters would say, well, that's not, you know, I don't own the server. I don't own, you know, I'm not one of the moderators of the server, blah, blah, blah. Why is it on me to create diversity when it is a game where if black people wanted to play it, they could come and be a part of it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying from their perspective is probably what they would think.
I would go back to that. There's a hole in that logic because it's not fostering an environment to bring people of color in. And then it is on the people who create
Right.
to make sure it's a place where one, if they a diverse place, a place where people feel comfortable coming in, and if they feel like everything is just good and everything's fine and it's okay to be black people, but as long as you don't act like a black person, or XYZ, then everything's fine. So we don't need you, actual black people. And if you don't want to come up to our server or be in our server, well, then that's all on you and that's your fault. And I feel like that's very much the way that the mindset is what kept us segregated in many ways, keeping people oppressed, keeping people out of these circles. Because what do you see in these servers, right? They're getting the views, right, in the streams. They're getting that networking capability. And my thing is, at what cost, or the cost even more so for people who are actually black going into a server and then having to deal with people who may or may not treat them the best, people who think that it's fine for just anybody to be black. Like, I don't, there's no what's that called, not unity, but like camaraderie. Like, no, I got you, I see you. Like, I'm not gonna sit up here and let these people come in here and put on your quote unquote skin and just walk around as if it's fine. And I don't care if they've never said anything racist at all.
Someone,
like, that's the type of solidarity.
So if someone from like who owns the server came up and messaged you and was like, hey, we noticed that you're a black female streamer and we need more diversity on our server, will you play on our server? Would you do it?
I'd have questions first. I'd want to know why me? Are you reaching out to other people of color? If so, how many people have also agreed to it? And then I would say, well, what in the game, right? Are there any, what are the rules in your platform to stop things like harassment, racism, those type of things? Like, I want to know that it's an environment is welcoming, in a safe space, that I won't go on there and be insulted. Not even just people saying something insulting, but being assaulted visually at seeing people and interacting with people who are in many ways being caricatures or acting as caricatures or with blackface. People with blackface. And the thing is, if these people who create these platforms don't see how allowing people on there in blackface, and again, it cannot, I'm just saying as black, but of course outside of one's race, if that's allowed, that in and of itself is a to me. Like, I don't want to sit here and talk, right. Like, if I'm going to do a role play character and let's say, oh, we're friends, I want to be friends with let's say the black woman, but the black woman is actually a white man, but in my role play, we're best friends. It's just weird. Like, I hear it. Why would I'd rather be truthful or to cosplay as a person who, or what? Do we talk about black issues? That means that I don't get to be able to talk black issues, right? Or be my black self with other quote unquote black characters, because those black characters are not actual black people. And I don't feel comfortable being and talking and being in that way. And in many ways, is that missing out on an experience, like a black experience and a black culture in the game? Yes. Like, what are you saying? Like, oh, you're allowed to be a black character, but you can't act black. So what, when black people come into that server and see black people who don't act like, quote, don't act like black people because they're not black people, but so I just don't hang out with them, or that, which makes sense, but it's kind of like, it's weird. It's just weird. It's weird. Like, if I was around people in real life who dressed up in blackface, white people, that's weird. I'm not going to sit here and feel comfortable and say, hey, let's go, like, let's do this, or who are you? Like, that's not where I'm at, because clearly there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect there. And it isn't until the people who are in charge of the servers, people who are role-playing, see that, this, how are we going to get better? And in many ways, because again, like, I've been watching, these streamers do these role-playing, I think it would be fun. But the first thing I think in my head is, where would I even go? And of course, there you go. And that's where you gotta dig deep, type in. Are there any black surfers, people of color, or diverse surfers, or will they play these games? Like, because none of the ones that I'm seeing up here seem to be as like that inclusive space. And who knows, that that's an opportunity out there. But I guess to do that or create that space. But again, if you have to have some type of background in computer science, coding, again, knowing that there's that, again, systematic differences. There's certain people, groups of people who have way more access and have, well, as you know, right? White people, Asians are the ones who have graduated with that, the comm sci, right? Or have the most degrees, right? You hire people, you can see a lot of people, but you don't see it as much when it comes to black coders, right? Again, it's all about access and having access. When you were younger, did you have access to in your community, at your schools, right? Like, were you ever pushed to go, hey, maybe this would be a good space for you to go? Did you have the equipment, the things needed to thrive in that space? And for the most part, thank you, systematic discriminations, that hasn't been so much the case. So we already are going into this knowing that there's going to be this disparity when it comes to race in creating these servers. And my thing is, we have to be self-aware of it, or we're just going to end up, it's going to be, I feel like people might get in trouble, like looking down the road as it grows. And I do feel like this role-playing arena, because it's fun, it's funny, it's fun, right? Oh yeah, that was another thing too I wanted to talk about. So on the stream that we were watching, Hassan plays a Italian man, right? And then it's like, oh, Chiquina, well, what do you think about, is it racist or whatever for Hassan to play an Italian man? What, Matthew?
Right. If you want to give me 1 second, you can continue, but I have to go to the bathroom.
That is fine. I'll just switch over. Y'all get my face. So I guess going off of that, like, is it at the same level of problematicness? No. Mm-mm. Why is that, Jaquina? Okay. Well, it's because what Italian are considered white people. And with Hassan playing as a Italian man, there's so many, well, not only that, people have so many experiences with white men or Italian men, in that when you see someone, you don't automatically, all these stereotypes don't rush to your head. You're not treating them differently. Oh yeah, those are the mafias, or that's kind of that character. It's not hurting Italian people, like when it comes to getting a job, right? If you think, when you see an Italian, if you thought, oh, they might be in the mafia, just off the bat of them being Italian, that would be weird. Like, no one thinks that. They think, oh yeah, I know of so many other Italian people, they all don't have accents, you kind of know, those stereotypes don't stop people, like Italian people, they're not hurting them, right? It's a little Kiki, right? He gets a little Italian, whatever, he's funny. But to then go on and say that, well, that should be at the equal level. No, like, literally a person who's Italian, another man can come in. Are you back? The level at which it affects Italians as a whole is different. And not to say that, of course, it can be some problematicness to it, but it's not at that same level, and it's maybe harder to put into words. But that's why Hassan, as a Turkish man, right, him role playing as an white Italian, my question would be, okay, well, why Hassan? And I would imagine his answer would be, because it's funny, it's fun and funny. Which makes sense. That's really, I feel like, the reason why like, you would ask that question. You would say, why are you cosplaying as this person? Either it's because it's fun to, or you feel like it'd be fun and it would be funny, or experience to kind of like play around with the character or these stereotypes. Certain stereotypes are way harmful than others, especially when they're coming through the mouths of people who aren't the actual stereotypes. I don't know what more to tell you. But I would say at that same level, can it be problematic? I mean, it's a little bit, yes, it is. It can be problematic, but no, it's not at the same level. Period. There's no, like, he's not taking in a space. Like, unless there's a whole group of Italian people, and again, I'm not Italian, who feel some type of way about people playing as them and they've been hurt by the actions, okay. Well, then that's all of the groups. And I'm here to listen, right? And to listen. But that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm not maybe wording it exactly well, but I feel like people understand, right? Like, as Americans kind of get it, right? It's not as, for me to come on as a British person, right? Hello, how are you? Or whatever. Like, that's not hurting British people. And also because there's black people who are British accents. Now, am I British? No.
Right.
But even if I can jump in that experience, it's not going to hurt them because there's been so many accurate portrayals of people who are from the UK, and it's not. I don't know how to. Yeah, it's not gonna. It doesn't hit that same. It's not me putting it down, or that in any way me saying and doing any type of an accent for the culture in English, right? That's gonna take away from anybody in the same way as a black person or a white person coming on and taking over that black face or playing as a black character would in the same space. Like, yeah. Like, British people wouldn't be offended to see me on there unless I was doing offensive things, right? But if a black person goes on there and sees and finds out that the black person they're talking to is actually a white person, there is offense there. That makes sense. Or that there's that kind of I hope you really fighting hard for black rights and for you're putting on this, you're getting to this extent, like, one, no, but two, be self-aware enough. Are you, like, do you actually care? Like, that's the level. So, like, but even at that point, no, because you can go into the conversation with Rachel Dolezal, right? The white woman who essentially acted as though she was a black woman, said she was a black woman, or says she is a black woman, and has occupied spaces of privilege with that, like, and because of that has denied people, real black people with those experiences, like black experiences, places of leadership or power or opportunity that would not have been like that. You know what I mean? Like, where are the words? Are you looking up something? I know that there's a lag.
Yeah, I'm researching too how to fix the delay too. Um, I guess the only other things I would add are kind of going into what you were saying about the Italian thing. I would say it definitely could be problematic in certain circumstances, but you also have to understand, I guess, the overall impact, and I think that's why it's more problematic for people to roleplay as black characters because
If they're not
they
black as
are
roleplay.
a targeted minority in America. Right. Um, and it's also, not to attack people too, because, on the grand scheme of things, it's like, and on the scale of systematic racism, like where does this fall in terms of, you know, the fact that there are politicians, rich elites that systematically put in rules against minorities and black people? I would weigh those as far worse in terms of problematicness than, just random Twitch streamers role playing as a black character, because at the end of the day, the only things those affect might be people who are watching them and who might not be as confident in their, I don't want to say wokeness, but like in terms of their understanding of the world. Whereas I feel like younger people might, especially children, it might be slightly more harmful to them because, again, our education system doesn't really do anything for race relations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so just, I guess, keeping that in mind is that, in terms of just like the scale of things, it would be, I mean, let's say we fix a lot of the societal, uh, what do you call it, biases that we have in just normal American society. Would it then turn into, when white people role play black people, would it be that kind of like same as Italians where it doesn't matter because there are so many black people who are well off and aren't affected by those stereotypes that it doesn't matter anymore? Or that just naturally over time, if that society were to occur, it would be harder for white people to stereotype black people in that role-playing capacity just because of the culture of that society, if that makes sense.
I feel like that would be the case. And we go into utopia, then I would say, why is this even a thing? Even if it wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, not utopia, but like just better relations. There are countries that have, more, actually try to address some of the systematic issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess I would say to that, does it, which just because it's not the biggest factor, and let's say that a person doesn't have many followers or any of it, the thing is, as people of color and experiences, we realize those little things add up. Just because you're not, or they're not seen or in a place of power to make decisions, right, doesn't mean that in a world where you go into the computer and you're just saying constantly, oh, everywhere you go, like things, how to explain it? As we live our lives, we all encounter different people, and people that I'll never meet. There's people I'll never meet ever in the world. We have to accept that. Duh. I won't know everybody. We won't meet everyone. But by saying that it's okay because they won't affect people on as huge of a scale as in systematically, like with law, that those actions aren't harm, like, as, I know we can say that they're not as harmful. I meant, duh, of course they're not as harmful as, writing something, as environmental racism, putting it into policies, right? Um, but not to say that it doesn't have an impact, and that it can't have an impact on people who happen upon doing it, right? Because you would say, I guess, even going thinking about racism, well, if I didn't say the N word or wasn't being racist around black people, then is it really hurting black people? And I would say yes, because you're living it. It's in your mind. It's in your head, like subliminally in your actions. It could be hurting. black people, or when you see a black person, or if it comes to you had to pick somebody on a team, or you had to hire somebody, or you see somebody in the store, like these those type of racist thoughts that you've allowed to be had and to be spoken, and have thought yourself that, oh, it's okay just because I don't haven't said it out to a black person, doesn't mean, one, that black people don't sense that, and two, that it's not done in a not a subjective way, but that those hurtful or problematic results aren't felt or there. Does that make sense? Or the results of those. So I would say, even if you're not the biggest streamer, or if you're just a streamer and you're streaming, your role plays, just because five black people saw it and they felt alienated about it, and they felt, man, we're still in a world feeling that defeatist. Oh crap, we're in a world where now, even in all the servers, it's 2021, you have to explain to people why putting on blackface or doing a character is an issue. Like, that's a weight psychologically, and it doesn't matter. I've maybe only seen 5 people do it on the different instances. I haven't been counting, but to say that how I feel currently right now, they played a role in that, and feeling like there's so much more work to do, like to the point where, or even thinking, hey, I don't even think that's something I'd want to do because they're not ready yet, right? The streaming, these role-playing communities, they're not there yet. There's still racism there. There's still those biases. If I do that, I'm gonna have to overcome or deal with X, Y, Z. And even if you can just say that in your head, you haven't experienced it. Yeah, because that's how humans are, right? We take past experiences and we use those to determine how we move forward. And what I see through that is usually in spaces where people feel like it's perfectly fine to be quote unquote racist, or put on, racist or blackface, or to just say, hey, I can use the N-word whatever I want to. Like, in those spaces, not realizing that in and of itself is alienating, is going to create people, like, that's the problem. Like, that's the problem. Like, or that's the weight that, well, you technically can go in there and do it, but think about what you're putting forward. And the next time you do go to put a BLM or something else, realize, well, usually I feel like most of the time those people don't do it, but you can't say it. How can you say that in knowing you're actively doing something that's making people from a marginalized group already feel less welcomed? And I'm just saying that by putting on these, allowing white people, or non-white or non-black people, or XYZ, role playing as people of color, it, man, I feel like I just lost my thought, but essentially it just kind of further alienates and further takes away opportunities. If you wanted to have that black experience in your stream, then go find a black people crew. Make sure your system is like a space where people feel free and aren't alienated, and invite them in. It'd be real fun. It'd be real cool. It'd be the best place. But this idea where we just want, it's okay for us to be hegemonous with putting on like different faces and feeling okay with it and trying to justify it inwardly, that just kind of shows where you are, or where the community is. And that might be set way back when it comes to progression and inclusiveness. The community is all the way back there. Well, I need the community to be right here, pushing right here, right? I need it to be moving forward.
Right.
Anyway, well, I guess that was a good conversation on it. Got anything else to add in there, Matthew?
Nope, I think I'm good for this one.
Alrighty. Alright, so what else we're wanting to talk about? Ooh, burping. Sorry. Is the new Call of Duty.
You want to check the Discord?
Yeah. I can check the Discord.
It's technically not the new Call of Duty. Again, Call of Duty tries to stay away from this kind of controversy. It's called 6 Days in Fallujah.
Let me get that pulled up.
And you can kind of, if you go to the Discord, I have a link. You can kind of pull it up and,
oh, there it goes.
you know, we can go through this article on it.
All right. Let me go switch it over. Okay. All right. And while we do have a break in time, if you're enjoying what you're watching, if you're enjoying the stream, please hit that follow button. Again, our goals are to get to, 50 followers. That way we can switch over and level up on Twitch. So again, if you would like to hear more engaging conversation like the one we're having now, hit the follow. All right. So let's move. So this says, controversial game, 6 Days in Fallujah, about the bloodiest battle of the Iraq War is back in production. Let's hope they don't screw this up.
Oh, and note that a U.S. Marine, I think, wrote this article.
Okay. Perspective. Let's see how long it is. Oh, it's not that bad. Let's see. A video game about the deadliest battle in Iraq is once again back in production, nearly 12 years after their project was abruptly canceled following widespread criticism. They were going to do this back in, 2003? What? No. I'm so my math.
12 years ago?
12 years ago, B, no.
12? Yeah, no,
that's 2009.
2008.
2008.
2009.
Oh my gosh. I can do math, guys. I promise. Interesting. That was back in 8th, 9th grade when Call of Duty was just coming, or more so, fresh out and popular. That's bad. Okay, whatever. On Thursday, Highwire Games released a teaser trailer for 6 Days in Fallujah, a new video game set to release in 2021 that recreates the real-life stories of Marine soldiers and Iraqi citizens from the Second Battle of Fallujah during the Iraq War, and places players in their shoes during the bloodiest urban battle since the Vietnam War. Okay, just that there on its own. Why are you trying to place... I'm sorry, I'm not yelling too loud. Why are you trying to place people in the bloodiest urban battle? Like some psycho. So like especially it's based off of true events. Like this already is giving psychopath, sociopathic. I mean, on the game creator side. And they're saying too how I guess CIA the military works with Call of Duty. I mean, it's very obvious. I can't see how. It's very much a marketing tool for the army and military. But the thing is like, the lack of self-awareness. Like, do you not see that we see you? Do we not see that like the only way you could come out of this is to make it seem like your side was on the right side? So there's already a bias there. It's disgusting. Just the mere thought of it before even going into it is disturbing. Like, okay, anyway, at least that's a brief synopsis and one that doesn't begin to scratch the surface of that battle. The incredible costs bore to those Marines and soldiers who waged it and the citizens who survived it, nor does it address the controversy that arose when the title was first announced back in 2009. So let's have a brief history lesson. All right. In November 2004, okay, it was close. Okay, back in 2000, oh my gosh, Keena, read. In November 2004, a force of soldiers and Marines launched a massive assault into Fallujah in an all Al-Anbar province, Iraq, seeking to retake it from the hands of insurgents who were walking free through the streets and operating openly. The battle was the second attempt by U.S. troops to take the city after the earlier assault on the city in April 2004 stalled. The first Battle of Fallujah took place after 4 American contractors working for Blackwater were killed and had their bodies dragged through the streets. Okay. Photos sent the news agencies worldwide showed a cheering crowd gathered around the men's bodies, which were displayed on a bridge over the Euphrates River. The initial fight to take the city was called off amid political pressure from the Bush administration. Months later, on November 7th, the Second Battle of Fallujah, officially dubbed Operation Phantom Fury, began and stretched on into... Hold on. Where am I? Oh, yeah. Turning the city into... Okay. Stretched into December, turning the city into an urban battlefield. The ground force, spearheaded by Marine infantrymen, fought street by street and house by house for every block they took. Each building had to be cleared, and in it, each room. Ambushes were frequent, and the number of casualties and the dead were staggering. 82 American service members, killed. I'm not sure. I think I'm streaming on YouTube, and I'm not sure how many words of these I can say, but I think it's okay. And more than 600 were wounded. About 2,000 insurgents were killed, according to the U.S. military officials. Several hundred citizens died. Well, it's according to the U.S. Military officials, accounting of it. That's so awful. In the Marine Corps, the battle and its veterans are regarded with reverence due to the stories of valor and sacrifice that followed. For those who enlisted in the years after, the names and deeds of Marines like Douglas Zim something and Bradley Castle and Rafael Peralta were memorized at boot camp and officer cadet schools. With that in mind, it's time to turn back to the news at hand. Someone is taking a video game about all that. Is making a video game about all that. Skip over that. It's hard to understand what combat is actually like through fake people doing fake things in fake places, Tamtit said. The generation showed sacrifice and courage in Iraq as remarkable as any in history, and now they are offering the rest of us a new way to understand one of the most important events of our century. It's time to challenge outdated stereotypes about what video games can be. That already sounds like propaganda. Who said this? See, skipping stuff. Joining the Project Games, blah, 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 a publishing and production company founded in 2016 by Peter Toment. Exactly, so he founded a video game company. The former CEO of Atomic Games, the company behind the failed attempt to get the game off the ground 12 years ago. Yeah, I was saying like that. This sounds like straight propaganda. This can be left for the people to see and determine if it takes a new step and allows you to... Who wants to be in the footsteps of people who did one of the most bloodiest things? Hundreds of citizens? What? I tell you, the amount of brainwashings that can come out of U.S. Hollywood and these production companies, it is astounding. It is the world's best. Period. The game's developers certainly have their work cut out for them, given the title's fraught history. After 6 Days in Fallujah was announced in 2009, the title faced swift backlash over accusations that it was using a thin, ongoing war as fodder for entertainment. Critics were especially outraged over reports that the game might have allowed players to play the insurgents, or that it would reenact the maiming, reeling of real life American troops. A Fox News segment that aired following the initial attempt to produce the game back in 2009. Let's watch it.
Notice how they completely skip the part where they're talking about the civilians that were killed.
That's all I can hear. That's all I see. What I can hear. I'm like, that's a grandma. That's a little 3-year-old. Like, those are people, like, who didn't ask for any of it. There's no game, there's no joy, there's no nothing that I can pull from it, but if it's not showing the empathy towards those people and showing how disgusting and despicable these wars can be. That's the only thing. If it's doing anything other than that, I don't have time. And I guess let's try to watch this. I'm going to do this because let me just do this real quick.
Saddam had been captured. The Iraqi army scattered. Lawlessness and fear gave al-Zarqawi his moment, and he was prepared. They seized Fallujah, and the city was the first to suffer under their black banner.
These terrorists were armed to the teeth. No one will fight against them.
It had to be stopped, or the country will turn over to Al-Qaeda.
Okay.
It was a fortress. It was a well-prepared city, buttressed, waiting for us to come.
The only way you can clear a city is you have to search every house, you have to search every room, and you have to root out every insurgent.
We sustained hundreds and hundreds of casualties. A third of my battalion was killed or wounded.
It was the bunkers they would build inside houses. And you would go in the house, it'd be all quiet. And then they would open up on you or shoot you through a hole in the wall.
If they didn't hit you right away with a machine gun, they would draw you all the way back to the back of the house where there's really nowhere to escape.
There's such a fear, so you're standing in front of the door. You kick down that door, and there's a sense of relief. You only feel it if you survive.
We can tell you our stories. We can show you our scars. But some moments must be experienced.
I think we've done a really good job of appreciating service members. I think we've done a very poor job of telling the actual story of what happened.
A moment for truth. I think you moved the camera. I think your camera, it's like a lot of headspace above you. It's just the little things. There you go. You have to sit so close. But just thinking about, what are your thoughts on the trailer?
I mean, it would be interesting if they took the accounts and did them for real, but you know, I feel like this is a situation in which if you told the story, it would not reflect good or well on the service members who were actually there, because I mean, I think just knowing everything that people know now, we know that for a large part of, you know, why a lot of them were insurgents, were because of, you know, strategic, what would you say, like, strategic doings of like the US in destabilizing their government. And I mean, it's not like, I mean, if US service members were dropped off in Sweden in some random town and they started going through homes, would they be shot? Probably not. Why is that? Because those Swedish people don't have any reason to have feared the American military coming in. You know what I mean? Whereas you have to understand a lot of the issues in history going into this, and I feel like they're really only showing it from the side of the Americans without any of the actual history of why this happened. Now, if this was a video game about teaching that story and then being realistic and showing, you know, how larger parts of the government essentially forced young, poor, white and black people to go into this zone and pretty much sacrifice themselves, because this is close quarters combat where, you know, you're going into homes and essentially, you know, they're told you have to make a split-second decision whether this person is going to kill you or not. Shoot if you know, are unsure. Like, literally just... And so that's like why there were so many civilian casualties, is because and even like the term civilian and insurgent is problematic, because, you know, what do they label as insurgent? What do they label as civilian? It's just, if this is your battle strategy, you're literally going into a town and killing people in their homes. Who are you waging the war against? Are you waging it against the government that those people are under, or are you waging it against the people themselves?
Yeah. I am.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like it's because media and creating any kind of platform, there is going to be, well, depending who's creating it, some form of bias. And I feel like because it's not a game that is really trying to, nonpartisan, really just taking a look at what happened, the true stories, and trying to show you like it's not a movie, right? It's a video game where it's like we're going to make you empathize with the people shooting the people, because like by making you do it yourself. It's kind of, I feel, this justification.
And it's also, it's like unclear. It's like it didn't explain why they were going in and doing this. Like, you see these people in US military costumes going into homes, searching with guns. One of them was like literally pointing down at a cellar or like a basement and shooting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did he ask, hey, who are you? It's like, it's just like, what is going on here if you're not just going in and killing people indiscriminately?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, you can say, well, there were a lot of terrorists that were being, hidden in that town, but that also goes into what you label as terrorists.
Also, watch our words. I'm not sure
anything
if those
that the
words...
U.S. government labels as terrorists.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Okay, well.
But yeah, I would keep going.
What am I supposed to say?
Tease. We'll have to look into more of it, because it's more so YouTube, because they're also streaming on YouTube, and I'm not sure how that works. But until I do, so that's the learning curve. But continue, yeah. As we'll say, a threat.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's just, kind of like they're framing this as a history lesson without much history being involved in it.
Mm-hmm. At least that I wouldn't say as we know of, but I can more so assume so. We haven't played the game.
Yeah, just from the trailer though.
Yeah.
It's like, if the history of it is what happened on those days and following the soldiers, is the story of what happened there mostly about those soldiers and the insurgents and what happened there? I would say no. I would say the most important parts are what led up to it.
Yeah.
The history behind it, not just what happened that day. Like, it might even be accurate to what happened that day, but what does that help? You know what I mean?
Other than to justify or to try to put in people's minds who didn't know about it, make them feel less bad about that it happened, like as a way of revisionist type of history.
Well, that's even like, they're saying it's like, oh, revisionist history. I'm like, who sees that and sees, oh yes, the American forces were going against some evil threat? I mean, did you see an evil threat? Was there an obvious evil threat anywhere in the trailer?
Other than the people with the guns. But no. It talked about how they didn't know who was in the rooms, or that they would hide in the rooms or shoot through holes. I mean, I'm just saying, that's what it said. It didn't show anything. It just said it.
Right. But it's, in like Call of Duty games, they're not afraid. It's like, oh look, here are the Nazis, here are the people, here are the tanks, here are the planes, here are the war zone that's going to be there. Like, they're not scared of showing what happened. You know what I mean? Because in a lot of ways, those are large historical events that everyone knows. There's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like people haven't studied the history of Germany and what happened and have long books on each and every one of the battles.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's sort of more nuanced because who has told the story from, you know, the side of the Iraqis, and the, you know, the innocent civilians, as they said, that were killed. What were their stories? How did they see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that we are in a space and time where we as people, and even as young people, because of the internet, because we've had so much more access to truth, and see so much access to seeing lies being debunked, and knowing that we can't just listen to one particular source, but that there is nuance to situations. Like, it's nice that we're able to look at these articles and not just see it as, oh, it's just a video game, who cares, you know, that there's a consciousness out there that, hey, you're talking about civilians, and you went in and it was a bloody war and there was a lot of civilians gone. Like, how can we, like, by making it a game, like, you're trying to, again, not make people empathize, but, like, it's propaganda. It's all military industrial complex is what this game is. And to see it from a human's perspective, the humanity of it, right? You're, like you said, it's not showing it from a perspective of you're just a random person, and then the US shows up and then they're banging on the door and you're like, I don't know what to do, and they don't speak, US people don't speak your language, you don't understand what they're saying. Like, we're losing. Are we going to lose out on that? I'm pretty sure we're going to lose out on that, because it wouldn't put the US military in the best of light. And I feel like using this situation that was such a bloody war in a game, it just shows the amount of audacity and psychopathy or psychosis within the world, like, in that it's just allowed to be. I mean, we'll see how the game does come out, the backlash it's going to get. I can't even comprehend. Like, this game has, you don't understand the amount of level I don't and will not play this game, and it disgusts me how that level, I don't know how to put it on a scale. Just the thought of these type of games. And we talked about before, like, for me with Call of Duty, I remembered, I'm pretty sure, maybe like in high school, 9th grade, maybe 8th grade, 9th grade. And I remembered, going to friend's house and they're like, oh, Call of Duty. And then the scene comes up and they're like, oh, you're not going to like this. And then they're at an airport. And then all you see is them, like, the civilians, right? And I just remembered feeling, oh my gosh, like, this is disturbing. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why would the game make you do this? Like, no. And then just hearing, like, oh yeah, you or just play out. No. It's like, oh, it's okay. It allows you to skip it. Okay, but the mere fact that it allowed you to do it in military gear, the psychopathy, right? Like, it disgusts me. And since then, like, I've always never really liked Call of Duty because I didn't like how it had real life, what's that word called? Real life, I'm sleepy. It had links to actual real events. I guess that's the way you would put it. Versus what I felt like with Halo, it's more of like you're on another world, you're with these creatures, and you're playing this shooting game, right? Versus me playing a game where people actually suffered and they died, particularly, right? Like, and even if they're not, it's the thing.
So even in. Even in Halo, it's kind of interesting because you know, like the evil alien creatures that you're fighting against,
Mhm.
they're in what's called like the Covenant, and eventually they realize that like the people at the top in the Covenant don't really have their best interests in mind, and some of them split off to fight with the Space Marines.
Mhm.
And so even in a game like Halo, you have this sort of nuance of, you know, even the evil people that you are shooting once can come to terms and redeem themselves almost to the point where you're friends and you're fighting with them instead of against them.
Mhm. Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, there's more of that empathy. There's more of that humanity in it, and not just thinking of them as your sole enemy, or things that people that don't look like you or come from a different culture or a whole different universe. Um, and I like that type of nuance in games or in media, like where you're seeing intersectional stories, where you're seeing that there's like that humanity part. There's very few things that are just, there are things, but like few that are just all people are just whole evil, right? Like maybe 1% of humanity. I'm not saying the 1%, but maybe there's some okay, I'll digress. But there, yeah, like, but even in that, and I'm just joking with the 1%, but for the most part, there's nuance to people in life, and it's nice to see nuance portrayed in our, you know, mediums. And I feel like these type of games where it clearly has an agenda, it clearly has this bias towards, you know, Western, you know, military. It's like we clearly are the good ones. How dare anybody, you know? Well, at least what the trailer came off as, shooting at them, or like out of nowhere, these people are just, you know, in the homes you don't know, so you only get a side of the soldier, right? You're like, oh my gosh, if I just had to go here out of nowhere and had to open up these rooms, I would hope that these people, random people, want to hurt me. I didn't do anything. That it's one-sided. Not to say that those things aren't true, but there's reasons why, and there's nuance to it, and just to make it seem like either it's something fun or something that was justifiable, it, like in this game, and what it appears this game is doing, is very disturbing and very sickening. And again, the military industrial complex is so huge. It has done such harm and havoc around the world in ways that we don't know, we can't imagine, because we never lived in a society where, you know, bombs come, right, or people just bust up in a city homes, right? We can't imagine, but just I know that that's what we have done. And so again, like hearing of this video game, so I want to talk to you about it. Like,
sorry, real quick.
mm-hmm.
Another thing that kind of like, again, isn't brought up is that it's very easy to see that this conflict will have massive casualties for American soldiers. Like, again, they're going into one second. Into a supposedly heavily armed civilian place.
I mean, all around it's bad. It's all of it's sad, and all of it's upsetting.
Where they have the disadvantage.
War. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like there is a military general or commander or something that gave the order to go along with this mission, knowing that there were going to be massive casualties for American soldiers. And if they thought that it would not have massive casualties, they are just not a good commander, because it's easy to see, like on this kind of battlefield where you're going into homes like this, where the soldiers don't know where they're going, who to trust. looking, just not the home field advantage. It's just to say that they weren't sacrifices would not accurately classify the situation.
Yeah. And looking on that too. Soldiers,
they essentially
victim.
thought about the pros and cons of this, and they were like, we're okay with
X amount of casualties.
hundreds of military soldiers dying in order to do this thing that we want.
Despicable. All around, like, yeah, you're right. All, I mean, yeah. Like you said, it's oftentimes people who are these soldiers. Where do they come from, right? These generals at the top are the elitist, right? Not actually having their feet on the ground, but the actual soldiers, how they've used military-industrial complex, poverty, or people who come from low incomes who are going into the military because they were taught that it was, a place where they could make an honest living, or I'm not sure, I guess the word honest living is weird, but like a place where they could make something of themselves, quote unquote. And it, at a time,
I feel like
economic stability,
for a lot of younger people,
education,
it's the promise of a free education.
Yeah.
They're given the saying that they could have upward mobility from where they are.
Reminds me of like those fish with those little, like, you see these little lights and the lights at the front, and then it's like the people, it draws you in, right, with this lure of, people are respected in the military. You can get educational opportunities. You can get a decent pay and retire with decent benefits. The little light. And then when you get close and you see the awful, evil fish, or it's not evil, it's just look ugly, but whatever, right? When you are there close enough to it, and you're right, it's sad. It's awful.
And it's also like another thing you have to consider is it's not only the American casualties that you have to think about, it's also all the people that lived, after the mission. Like, this definitely has to be a mission where the PTSD, amount of people who came out with PTSD was probably extremely high. Like, it would be hard to not, even from a human's perspective, putting yourself in their shoes, not knowing, having to go to like 5, 10, 100 of these buildings, knowing that your friend was just shot in the other one. Are you going to make it out in the next 10 that you do?
Yeah, and how that, I feel like games like this
Knowing
minimize
this was
that.
multiple days, like.
Because again, putting on a role, you're playing a character, you can just take it, walk away from it. You're missing something, right? That real soldiers have to deal with after doing those type of acts, right? Or being, quote unquote, forced to, told to, directed to by a commanding officer. The idea of having to break open like the doors and not know. I mean, there is, or just seeing that crap you accidentally, like an innocent, right? Like, that's where the problematic with these like games, like in supporting these type of games, it's just all around propaganda. There's no other word for it. Did you leave? Oh. But let's.
No, I'm back.
Honest everything, I'm like, oh, this topic is a lot. Let me just kind of keep reading. The developers say that when the game comes out in 2021, it won't include any campaign missions in which players are insurgents, nor will they be able to play as insurgents during multiplayer matches during gameplay without their family's permission. Wait. It says, nor will they be able
And
to
so
play
then
as insurgents.
you kind of well, then that kind of tells me, well, if they're not playing as insurgents and they're doing online competitive play, then that means that there's U.S. You know, army military people killing other army military people.
Is that?
Because if you're not the insurgent and you're having online competitive play, who are they killing?
Oh, no. Yeah. You're right.
Which, I mean, I guess you could say that's the same as like Call of Duty's, because
Or would it be that everyone would have to be a soldier in the game?
Call of Duty does the same thing. You're not the enemy when you play online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It says additionally, the game will not recreate the death of a specific service member during gameplay without their family's permission. Instead, Marines and soldiers describe the sacrifices of their teammates during the video interviews. Okay. It's notable that should this latest attempt be successful, it will be the first time the battle has been portrayed on screen, not counting documentaries or a brief spot in films such as American Sniper. To date, the battle from the perspective of the rank and file grunts who fought and won, it still has not been recreated in film or television. Past controversies aside, 6 Days in Fallujah presents a unique opportunity to tell the story of the Second Battle of Fallujah. Unique opportunity. And those who waged it. Though it comes with a high risk of failure and some very reasonable concerns that it might amount to little more than Call of Duty Real World Edition. But the game's creators don't seem to be worried. To produce 6 Days in Fallujah, the developers worked with more than 100 Marine soldiers and civilians who survived the bloody ordeal and overlaid their stories onto the game itself in an attempt to build the most authentic. You can't really get authentic with the people who didn't survive it. An attempt to build the most authentic military shooter to date and to tell these military and civilian stories with the integrity they deserve. Are they going to this is where it's like, it's very much upsetting to me, because I feel like they're not, they're not. This all, like, what the people are saying you create this is there's propaganda pieces. How can you give it the integrity that people think it deserves when it says the civilians, mothers, fathers, grandmas, babies, kids? How can you give it anything that anyone deserves? Like, by then making it a game that is, I'm more than likely not going to make you sick to your stomach ever of war by the end of it. I'm pretty sure that's not the design of this game. So it has no moral or righteous purpose at all. So this idea that just by getting certain stories here and picking and choosing what you add in to create this narrative of pro-war pushing for it. Okay, and in and of it, just for it being what it is, it completely throws any argument of trying to get to any type of good or any. You're making a game. You're telling a story via a game. That is not, what is it called? Condemning this whole thing. All the war. It's not. So it's just like, okay. But I'll keep reading. Military and civilian stories with integrity that deserves reads a statement on the game's website. What am I saying? What am I telling you? Exactly. Propaganda. Garbage. It's how they word it. Is their plausible deniability for why, and justifications for why they feel like they have the right to make this game and give it out and put it out there into our communities. And here's where I personally get a little optimistic. Based on the trailer and press statement from the developers, 6 Days in Fallujah will base its individual missions on accounts of those who were there. And you'll hear their voices and see their faces alongside you as you play. How does that make people optimistic? What made you think when you were like these people when they were going through that horrific experience, and that is what it was, horrific, traumatizing. Hey, you know what would be great? If there was a person there with us, like that everybody could just be, and they can experience this too. And again, not in a way of condemning all of war, like what this is, but as a way of empathizing with the quote-unquote people with weapons. Again, like we said, that there was hundreds of civilians. Now it would be, I feel like, slightly different, but not really, because again, of war or a battle where it was solely just military people. Military. Civilians weren't there. I guess those are what the other war games are. Like where you go and fight Germany in World War II and you're in the trenches. So there's no real actual civilians around. So you don't feel as certain type of way. Like, you know, like versus trying to feel and empathize where people were making mistakes because their people at the top told them to just go into homes. Like putting them into, like, this is maddening. This is maddening. Just reading this. And the guy, again, makes sense that you said that the writer of this article is Marines. I was like feeling a little bit optimistic. I guess I can see for on their side is like people who've lived through that or had experienced that. I'm not, and who are still alive today, I'm not downing them, and I have compassion for them in that they were told to do it. Like those who were forced to, and they have, you know, you're here, you're now, and you signed up for this, you didn't really, but you were there and you had to go through with it for XYZ. I'm there with that compassion in the trauma that they may still be feeling from that day or any regrets that they may have from that time. I don't feel that by bringing other people into that space and not giving a full overview of the situation and coming from Bryce's perspective helps to gain the type of empathy that they're needing / wanting, right? Because if you be, I did that battle, I was in that scene, I busted into those houses along with what did they do, like how did, like, that's, was that the response that the people who went through that and suffering now with PTSD wanted you to get from it? Like the actual people? And then who's making money off of this game? Like who's benefiting from this game? There's such a fear. A man says in the trailer. His name is not given, but he's presumably a Marine veteran who fought there. In the next scene, a CGI version of him is seen stacked up outside of a door as he narrates his own in-game actions. So you're standing in front of a door and you kick down that door and there's a sense of relief. You only felt it if you survived. While it seems likely that players will spend most of their time in the boots of Marine infantrymen during the battle, some missions will see them cast as service members from partner nations, and at least one in the single-player campaign will focus on the perspective of an unarmed Iraqi citizen trying to flee the fighting. So as you see, there goes their plausible deniability. Well, at least we have them through the vantage point of an Iraqi citizen. Again, it was all constructed. Right. Iraqi citizen. Because this isn't a real Iraqi citizen. It's what someone's created to be what symbolizes what an Iraqi citizen. So. Given that gaming is naturally a wholly different medium than film, there's a chance that a video game could give players a very small taste of what that experience felt like. Why do you want it? The fear that comes from rounding a corner, not knowing what's ahead, and that release of tension when a room you just entered is empty, or the chaos and violence that follows when it isn't. A game can impress upon the audience the sheer will it must have taken those on the ground to urge themselves forward. Or maybe it's the fact, maybe they can really emphasize with the fact that you're being forced to go into these extremely dangerous situations. Don't forget, forced. They were told to. Okay, they didn't just accidentally wander in out of nowhere, you know. Hey, no, like they were. Yeah, urge himself forward and repeat the process again and again, home after home, room after room. And like you're right, Matthew, the fact that they were even put in the position that they would. And again, I don't know the overall stories. Like. That led us to this, but just kind of looking at it from a strategical standpoint, lest the person was covered in like a titanium thing, like the idea that you thought that just walking into homes, it was clearly the idea was we have these people who we have all these little pawns that we don't care of getting rid of. So we don't care. We'll get it done. Who cares to sacrifice? Because those are people who are useless. But then you're going to say, oh, we cared about them so much. We interviewed them. But you literally just had them walk in. Like, extremely dangerous situation. So now people can profit off of a game where you are put in that feeling, but without any of the consequences or anything. That they thought that was good and that's okay. If successful, the 6 days in Fallujah could go a long way to up in established norms in how modern warfare is depicted, both in gaming and entertainment. More generally, it could be a way to push back on the all too common depiction of combat as an instant run and fight or gunfire fight, with bad guys who are easily distinguishable from good guys or citizens. Few games to date have been able to convey the confusion and fear that comes with modern combat. If handled correctly, perhaps 6 days in Fallujah could. However, failure to do so would risk trivializing the suffering, sacrifice, and heroism of so many. Trivialize the suffering and sacrifice and heroism. I really want to know what are the results that happen from Fallujah. Oh, you can look it up. Actually, it says in many ways, we're at the end, guys. In many ways, I'm rooting. He says, in many ways, I'm rooting for it, though it's more out of desperation than anything else. There is no margin of error with 6 days in Fallujah. So that means it's going to suck because there's huge error. In that way, at least, it's somewhat similar to actual battle on which it is based. Let's see. I don't feel like what would you say? What happened as a result of the Battle of Fallujah? Maybe that would be a good way to put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I need to. Here it goes. Let's see. And for some reason, I feel like the chat window, like that I'm seeing, is maybe it's frozen. But anyway, I feel like I haven't seen anything, any update to it. Okay, I digress. So, I feel like, where do you think that would be the best, somewhat accurate? Oh, these are military, like army or Wikipedia. It's not just sad because you're just like, even just going to Google and knowing just how algorithms work, you're just like, ugh. Pretty sure. I'll check Wikipedia. It's like biased, Marine Corps times biased, military.com biased, takenpurpose.com. I don't even know what that is, so maybe not trustworthy.
Sounds biased.
Taskandpurpose.com. Again, what is that? Or did I just say that? Yeah, that's what I just said. It says military.wicca.org. It sounds biased. .co.com. .co. I mean, again, is it a reputable source? And then you got Washington Post. Biased. And then you have army.mil. So biased. So again, it's just like, being yourself aware. I don't know. Like, and then it's just like, so let's just see what Wikipedia has to say. No, again, because woke millennial, we come in knowing that there will more than likely be a bias, but we can still eat the fish and spit out the bones, because that's what we do here. All right, so it says the second battle blah, 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 was a joint American Iraqi government and British offensive in November and December of 2004, the highest point of the conflict during the Iraq War. It was led by the U.S. Marines against the Iraqi insurgents in the city of Fallujah and was authorized by the U.S. appointed Iraqi interim government. The U.S. military called it some of the heaviest urban combat U.S. Marines have been involved in since the Battle of Hue, I think that's Hue City, in Vietnam in 1968. This operation was the second major operation in Fallujah. Earlier, in April 2004, coalition forces fought the first Battle of Fallujah in order to capture or kill insurgent elements considered responsible for the deaths of Blackwater security team. When coalition forces fought into the center of the city, all right, the Iraqi government requested that the city's control be transferred to an Iraqi-run local security force, which then began stockpiling weapons and building complex defenses across the city through mid-2004. The second battle was the bloodiest battle of the entire Iraq War for American troops, and it's notable for being the first major engagement of the Iraq War fought solely against insurgents rather than the forces of the former Ba'athist, Iraqi government, which was deposed in 2003. Background. In February 2004, In February 2004, control of Fallujah and the surrounding area in Al-Anbar government was transferred from the U.S. Okay, the control was transferred to the U.S. Okay. 18th or blah, 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 okay, all these words. Shortly after, on March 31st of March 2004, 4 Americans ambushed, pastor killed. Images of their. Okay, I see. So yes, that upset the Americans when they saw the bodies just kind of out there. Hey, was that a follow sound? Okay. Welcome to the Woke Millennial community. All right, so insurgent strength control began to grow in such an extent estimated his troops at 5,000 men, mostly non-Iraqis. However, the stated purpose of the military operation of Fallujah was to weaken the insurgency in preparation for the planned Iraqi election in January of 2005. There you go with those elections. It says over here, it says the troops altogether 13,000 casualties and lost. Americans almost 100 and 600 wounded. It says citizen fatalities. I don't know what Red Cross 800 means. Too many. Too many citizens. So anyway, I feel like it's hard to. Okay, let's see what they say about this. really be interesting to get true insight into what happens. Because again, I get... Because what it doesn't say in these is, in articles, is was it necessary? Was it the best route to go? Okay, it says the aftermath. There's 58 wounded, all these. That's the Red Cross estimated directly following the battle that some 800 citizens had been killed. So again, they're about to make money off a game that recreates this. It's disgusting and despicable. I guess that's kind of it. Is there anything else you would like to add to this, Matthew? I feel like this kind of sombered out the stream.
Right, a little bit. Not really.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Let's see. What is happening? Oh, yeah. There's another. Okay. Let us talk. I have a rant. It's off topic. Or not the same. Oops, here we go. All right. Oops, sorry. It's probably loud. Biden. Let's bring it back to politics. This heifer. So Biden had a town hall yesterday. And in this town hall, he was asked about canceling student loan debt. And like the slimy devil that he is, try to use plausible deniability as to why he can't do it. And why he's really only willing to do $10,000 forgiveness for people who've went to public schools, because he tried to frame it as people who went to Harvard and Yale are rich and currently have jobs that make them currently rich, and thus we don't have to subsidize millionaire kids. My thing is, and honest to everything,
Except...
I feel like we should watch it. That's just for those who haven't seen it. Let's say where it's Biden Town Hall student loan. I don't know. Again, I will proclaim it loudly. I did not vote for Biden. I thought he is awful. He is a horrid human being. He has always been a horrid human being. And I don't care how many black friends who happen to be president have been president. Will change it. And we will all see how horrible he is. And y'all want to say all this stuff. Not saying our presidents are horrible. I feel like since we have been alive, I've yet to have a good president. And dare I say, America has yet. And the only closest they can get to is FDR for the New Deal. But my thing is, did we look in to see how FDR left black people? We can say how he wasn't great for black people. In order to appease the Southern whites, he refused to make lynching illegal. A lot of those programs he implemented did not help black and brown folk. So, if everybody wants, FDR, whatever. He didn't do the Trail of Tears, I guess. So, I digress. Biden. This wolf in sheep's clothing. This despicable creature. Liar. Liar. Absolute liar. I'm just trying to see which one I want to click on. I feel like this clip may be it. I feel like this has extra stuff in it. Nope. The Independent. Is it just gonna give a clip? Okay, whatever. We're gonna try this one.
Loans are crushing my family, friends, and fellow Americans.
Me too.
And fellow Americans.
Me too.
The American dream
Think
is
I'm
to
kidding.
succeed, but how can we fulfill that dream when debt is many people's only option for a degree? We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen. It depends on whether or not you go to a private university or a public university. It depends on the idea that I say to a community, I'm going to forgive the debt, the billions of dollars of debt for people who have gone to Harvard and Yale and Penn and schools. My children, I went to a great school, I went to a state school. But is that going to be forgiven rather than use that money to provide for early education for young children who come from disadvantaged circumstances? But here's what I think. I think everyone, and I've been proposing this for 4 years, everyone should be able to go to community college for free. For free. That costs $9 billion, and we should pay for it. And the tax policies we have now, we should be able to pay for it. You spend almost that money as a break for people who own racehorses. And I think any family making under $125,000 whose kids go to a state university they get into, that should
What are your thoughts on Biden's thoughts?
Well, it's just kind of in to talk about what you were saying before the video. It's like, should the student loan relief go to those people who were lawyers and whatnot, who now have high-paying jobs that, you know, went to Harvard and things? Well, those people who went to Harvard and things are not likely or as likely to have student loans as those who went to public schools like universities. And so a lot of the times I feel like when people say, oh, you know, just forgiving student loan forgiveness, oh, well, that favors the rich because only richer or middle class families go to school. It's kind of like, okay, have we gotten to the point where it's like, if you're not poor, we don't want to give you anything? No, because when people go to school, when they become lawyers, when they become doctors, when they become therapists, when they become engineers, those are all a benefit to the economy, to people who use those things. And it's a way for people who are in lower socioeconomic classes to raise their own, raise the amount of money that they could potentially make in life. And so it's like an investment in people. And so it doesn't matter if they're middle class, because they could become more than middle class. It doesn't matter if someone's rich kid gets their school paid for because hopefully they go on to, if they are a lawyer, do something that benefits the community. You know what I mean? It's like it's very hard to go to school and get something that just benefits themselves rather than the community. And so it's just kind of like this false narrative of, you know, oh, if we forgive a certain amount of student loans, or if we just pay for college outright, that one, it will cause the schools to increase the amount, you know, that they cost already, or that again, it won't be a net benefit to society and something that we can easily do.
Here we go. Yeah, I see that. It would make a benefit, right? If everyone had access to education, or that at least what we have been doing to people in ways that it's crippled them, relieving that crippling aspect of it and treating it more like a right makes sense. I mean, it's only going to benefit us. Like you were saying, the more people who are educated, the better our society is. Would I say that just by saying that? Did he say, he said community colleges? Did he say all public schools? Or he was saying he said if your parents are making under $125,000 and if you go to a state school, then you wouldn't have to pay for school. Correct? But that all community colleges would be free.
Which, I mean, is still good. It's still...
I don't like it.
It's kind of like the going back to the thing of like, with Medicare for all, it's like, oh, well, let's just give Medicare to all for people who don't have insurance or who need it the most. And then just let the people who are rich just pay for themselves. Well, because that creates a fractured system, makes it a lot harder to the government to do bargaining power when they have to also deal with private entities. And you know, in terms of like school, I feel like the reason why it costs so much now is that there is this loan incentive. Like, students can just get loans that pay for these really expensive like colleges, whereas if it was the government negotiating, like, I feel like people mistakenly think, oh, if the government's paying for it, then that just means that the schools can increase the tuition to whatever they want because the government will pay for it. And that's not taking into account that then the government has a direct incentive to negotiate for those things, to control the price of education. And maybe it could be something like, I don't think we'll get to the point where everyone who wants to go to Harvard could go to Harvard. I think it will still be largely selection based. But if it was free for everyone, then it would be truly selection based. No one would have the problem of, you know, people could apply for Harvard that they know couldn't normally afford it. And so that's why, because again, a lot of the higher socioeconomic level jobs come from those schools that aren't completely private or aren't public schools. Like, there's a lot of networking and things like that that go into those schools like Harvard. And so to just say, oh, schools that are private, or if you have high income or whatever, you shouldn't get those same opportunities. Just doesn't make sense because, again, there are those crazy people, crazy rich people that are like, no, I had to go to school on nothing, and so my child should have to go to school on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the other kind of other side of it where you have the people who are just willing to pay millions of dollars to a foundation for their student to get into Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
It should be that it's a level playing field for everyone.
Merit-based.
It doesn't matter if you're rich. You have to apply to Harvard, and if you get in because of your merits. You get in because you were better than everyone else.
Well, they say right now in schools, need blind, but
And
they've
that's
taken
still-
away need blind. So it's like because, like,
And that system would still have inequalities because those who are of higher socioeconomic status, of course, have access to better education and thus might
it's almost like it's systematic.
better likelihoods of getting into those better institutions anyway.
Mm-hmm. And because I guess it's systematic and having
But-
that background, that people who go to those universities had all that extra help to get them to perform at levels that would, like, get them into those universities is what I feel Biden in this is writing on too, which isn't fair because there are people who come from spaces that, like, they bust a tail, like, despite not having tutors with the ACT or SAT, despite having, you know, the access help or having, you know, quote unquote rigorous classes, or where your teachers taught, or you went to schools that taught, you know, advanced, right? It's kind of, he's relying on those kind of
Right.
biases or thought processes we have. Oh, if they went to private school, they must have had everything, so they don't deserve it, which is erasing the experiences of those who've gone to those schools and did not have that. It's not a monolith when it comes to universities. Let's thought process on it.
Right. And so going into like the dichotomy of like how the education system works and how the like healthcare system works, people are always like, oh, well, we need to focus on the poor and the most needy in order to fix the system. And I don't think that's always the case, although that's a large part of what needs to happen. And so what I mean by that is what people tend to want to do and how they frame the issues is that you have to pull up the people who are of lower socioeconomic status or who need more resources and push down those who have more resources, when it should be that it's just equalized. People are pushed up to the same level. No one's pushed down.
But in many ways, it's hard to do that
Because when you push people down or you make it...
Because more access to it makes the pool bigger. I mean, because it started off with such a inequality that it's okay to not have 100 million in the bank, where it's okay, like, if you're, in order to make things more fair, I'm just doing it as an example, instead of taking 15 million a year for your salary as a CEO, maybe taking 8 million instead of seeing that as you just lost something, I think it has to do with the mindset of it. But I would say that there is, or when it comes to competition, it does make it a little bit more so, right? If you've only been competing with people who came from this small little group, and now you're saying, you know, this is unfair, the group is actually this big that you're supposed to be competing with, that's why, like, the intimidation's there. But my thing is, it shouldn't have to think that way, right? If it's about Harvards, then we can create Harvards, many a Harvards. What's special about Harvard other than the name and the legacy, blah, blah, blah. But, like, the education in and of itself, like, the experience, it could be replicated. But I think, yes, you're right in thinking of it, that if it's you gain something, I lose something, instead of thinking it's not technically a loss. It's an equality. It's a thriving model versus a, like, in order for you to have something, the other person has to lose something. Instead of seeing it from that perspective, it's just like we're evolving for better. Does that make sense?
Yes, they frame it as a game, as a zero-sum game, when it's technically a positive-sum game. Education. Yeah.
Real quick, I did see that we did get message in the chat. So just want to read it real quick. So it says from Awoken Minds, that does not make sense at all. I mean, LOL, rich kids don't take student loans. Also, if a student from a low socioeconomic status improve their lives, right? They deserve that income, and most probably supporting their families too. Also, he speaks community colleges like the funds would hold the service and facilities to the highest standards, right? When the standards are off the grid. It is very different from countries where education is totally free and held to the highest standard. And that I see that, and that makes sense, because I was thinking that too. Community college, yeah, well, yes, I guess saying having nothing or community college having access to that is something, right? You have access to that kind of knowledge and can dive deeper. But what we see right now is people who have even gone to these 4-year universities, these private schools, aren't getting jobs. They're not being employed the way that they made it seem like they would be employed, right? You went to this good school, you're supposed to have a job. But people aren't having jobs. Now we're here in an environment where people have lost their jobs due to a pandemic. And it's this idea that just by making community colleges free, that, oh, there's going to be so much more opportunity now. Like, what else added in? Because people already have degrees and aren't working. Adding in more degrees is not going to guarantee more jobs or anything. It's more of, I feel like, plausible deniability so that we look good to the rest of the world and say at least we have community college. It almost feels kind of like it's added on to, as like just having a high school degree. It's going to be moved to, you now have to be in school even longer, right? I mean, which is already kind of the case, but with still not having that certification that really moves you and gets you somewhere. But that's not, I'm not saying that that's the case for everybody. There are people who go to community colleges to be, massage therapists or get into electrical engineering, and they do find work, and it has helped them and opened up doors for them that other way it couldn't be. But my thing is, we have to be self-aware that people, like, there is a difference. But I mean, again, but if I'm saying no community college, of course we choose community college and everybody gets community college. But it just didn't feel like equating the same as all public universities are free. In many ways, it would be nice to see that on top of community college, and those who qualify for parents who make under a certain amount of money, right, they get private schools free as well. Because if the whole point is to uplift people out of poverty or out of their current socioeconomic standing, and giving them the ability to, do better for themselves and also for society, contribute, you would want to make sure that everyone has as much access to getting to the top, if the merit, whatever, takes them there, as possible. Instead of saying, oh, well, that's a private school and we don't mess with private schools, even though private schools, in many cases, a lot of the top universities, quote unquote, are private universities who have the most rigorous classes or revered professors, like teachers, right? They gravitate towards the Harvards, the Yales, maybe Columbias, Princetons, Stanfords. And so what is that saying? We'll pay for you, but not to have access to these people. like to those, or I don't. It's just a lot. It's very disingenuous. Just like Biden, he's disingenuous. I just want to say all the mean things about him. I don't like him at all. He's so awful. He lied, y'all. He lied that he got arrested trying to meet Nelson Mandela. This man lied about going to churches and fighting or protesting with civil rights leaders and like coming together. He's like he's off in the head, like derangement. And even on the campaign trail when he said, like, I was wondering why I was seeing on Twitter and, you know, even on YouTube, people saying, oh, you know, $50,000 in student debt cancellations. And I'm like, but didn't he say he didn't want to do that? Didn't he say that he didn't want to help people into private universities? And then here we go. It shows up at the town hall. But I guess for my slight rant on that, I use myself as an example. I came from low income family, right? Lower socioeconomics. My mom, she single mom, took care of my 3 siblings that's growing up, nieces and nephews, did not have the funds to send me to school. And she told me at a young age, and I always remember the conversation back when I was I think I was in 2nd grade, 3rd grade. She looked at me and my sister and was like, do you like this? Talking about like our house and where we lived. And she was like, we were like, no. And she was like, well, the only way you get out is through your books and education. And she said, I won't be able to pay for you to go to school. I'm telling you this now. I'm not going to be able to afford for you to go to school. So in order for you to make it out, you have to do it. Right? You have to do well. You have to take it seriously. And I tell my story, but I said all that to say, I worked really hard, did a lot in school, made my resume good, grade, point average, volunteer work, all of it really hard, right? Leadership positions, just a lot. I get into Wake Forest University, and that's where I went to school, right? Good old Wake Forest, Demon Deacons. But I will say that I was blessed in that. Well, honestly, okay. Yeah. I would say at the time, I felt like when I was at Wake that I probably was one of the kids, the very like smallest percentile whose parents made the least amount of money in the whole school. Like it literally got to a point where I turned in everything my senior year. They didn't believe, they had to do a double check because they're like, oh, sometimes the government flags some students and you have to provide extra information to verify to make sure you're telling the truth. And in many ways it felt like, oh, because your parents said that she made this low amount of money, how do we believe it? So you need to verify it. They literally had me go get my high school transcript, show it to them. Again, senior year of college. And they made me write a statement. I had to write a statement saying why I wanted to go to college or why I deserved to keep the scholarships. Because they didn't want to just, give scholarships to students who were just thinking that this was fun and games. It was despicable. But anyway, I say all that to say, graduated. And in comparison, I have roughly around $25,000 in student loan debt. And that is by the grace of the universe. Almighty, right? Because Wake Forest was about $60,000 a year. So altogether, it was almost $250,000. Now, in comparison, you can look at it and think, hey, well, you got this experience. Other people paid this amount of money to go to the school.
I have to go to the bathroom, but I'll be back.
Oh, okay. I can just switch it over. I can just keep talking or telling the story because you already know the story. So, 20,000. Oh yeah, 25,000. You know, it's a what, 10% of what it costs to go. But note, I don't have any family help, right? It's just, and after graduating college, and one thing I really did remember, and if there's anybody in here who hasn't quite gone to school or hasn't finished university, note there are things they won't tell you and they don't tell you. And I, even with all of my, I'm a person that likes to study in advance, and like I want to be prepared. I want to be wise, especially when it comes to like with finances. Oh, I feel like my screen is blurry. Oh, there it goes. With finances. But what they don't tell you is, yeah, think of your major and what you want to be. Now think, where do you live? Where do you come from? What city do you live? What state do you live in? Right? And in your city, or do you have a car? Does your parents have access to a car? If you are in a field that, let's say your city, it doesn't have many job opportunities in, right? Let's say you want to get into marketing, or like I said, I was communications major, focus on film studies, media, and a minor in entrepreneurship. And so, I don't know if I can tell the city where I was from. Good old, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so that was right where my family was. And so when I looked and applied, like I knew people who were in the city. Again, I was that one student. Hey, you're back. Who put in the work. Like, but even with those connections that I had, I put in the applications. I didn't either get a response, or they weren't hiring, or it was a no. And what I realized is, well, then crap, that means I need to go outside of my city. But wait a second, Jakina, you don't have a savings, right? You don't have $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 saved up so that you can then go to New York or to California or Atlanta, right? Have at least 2-3 months rent already there. So so when you start working and it takes time for that money to kick in, right? You have that. I didn't have parents that could do that. Say, hey, Jakina, it's okay. We'll take care of you for 6 months. Now, I had other friends from my university who had parents that did that for them. They didn't have to worry at all. They already had a car. Not only did they have a car, they had a BMW convertible. And so, but again, here we're in the same space. We came from the same university. But you see, our after university challenges are different. And so, prepared. If you don't have a car, that already sets you back. So now you have to work somewhere to be able to, long enough to to be able to afford a car, right? And hope that there isn't an emergencies. For me and myself, health issues hit right after graduation, literally right after. I woke up the next day, my jaw, it was not opening. That TMJ, on top of chronic pain that started happening. I didn't have health insurance, right? I am here you go, Matthew. I am, right? Again, my family, just because I was able to go to a private university, just because I was able to take classes with people whose families come from the richest 1%, how did that help me after? I'm still the same place that I filed for those, where I needed that financial assistance before I went to college. It's the same one I would need after when I get out. It's the same place, the same family. And yes, while you can hope that with that education to get you somewhere, that's not a promise. But they make it seem like that was a promise. And so here we are with how many countless people who've gone through similar situations, right? They don't have funds where because they don't care enough, right? It's all plausible deniability. Hey, we got you in. It's not our fault if you didn't do it. Yeah, things are set up where you can't get any help out after. We don't even have people to help you walk through on campus that process because they only know how to deal with students who have come from backgrounds where their parents can at least pay if they need to get a job outside of school or outside of the state they live in, pay for their living, cost of living, including food, or even if they have health issues, their health insurance for X amount of time, or they have a car already. Like, they didn't have it. So to me, they were like, oh yeah, I know it's hard. I'll reach out to this person and see. And then they never get back with you. Like, so to me, hearing a person like Biden, and my thing is, and how I treat Biden and politicians who are similar to him, they know exactly what they're doing. I refuse to ever think that a politician who has been in for at least more than 2-4 years does not know what they're doing. I'm going to think they know more than what they do. Y'all play me for stupid. No, you will have to prove that you're stupid. Because I don't believe it. I believe you're evil, not stupid. But your evil deeds go through the fact that you can play dumb and everyone believes you. Biden, really? You said that money would take away from lower education. Money is fake. If the pandemic did not prove that, money is fake. The Federal Reserve literally said it, when they did the whole CARES Act, when they gave the richest of people in the banks and Wall Street that X amount of $1 trillion. Dude went onto the news, and I should look it up. How would I word it? He essentially was like, they were like, but wouldn't that mess up with inflation rates and things like that? That's why we don't just, give out money, because it can affect other things. And dude was like, I know that was plausible deniability for why we don't alleviate American suffering and give them health care and housing and home or education. But actually, we just type in a number in a computer and then push send. And it's done. It's not linked. Or the way our system's set up, it doesn't affect our currency that way.
And I mean, in a correct system, the minimum wage would be tied to the inflation of the dollar, and thus there wouldn't be that argument, because yeah, things would go up, but so would pay at the same rate. If you intrinsically link them, that argument kind of goes out the window.
They don't intrinsically link them because they didn't have to, because it's a lie. They could make the minimum wage higher. We could literally subsidize businesses that make under or have a certain amount of revenue or what qualifies for to get employees to subsidize. That's easy. But they'll act fake, like the devils they are, that, oh, it's so hard. It's going to cost businesses so much, they'll go out of business. Like, all of it's a lie. And Biden is here doing a lie. That if somehow we help alleviate debt that the country has, again, that's Federal Reserve, right? Right, hand in hand. They could write it off. But, sorry, it's annoying me when it's blurry. But he wants to act like, if we pay, I don't want to pay for rich people's debts to be off, because that will take away from the kids. You know how the pathos works and how humans have this soft spot for children. And you're right. Why would I pay for rich people's loans, rich kids' loans, if that sacrifices the babies at the expense of the youngins? What a disgusting devil, evil man to word it and put it that way. They have you can do both at the same time. Both at the same time. And my thing is, you have the audacity. You think we're stupid? Do you think that a kid that is coming from low income who went to a public school versus a private school, when they get out of and have the same amount of debt, that one disappears faster than the other? Is he really trying to say it? He's saying that me, even though we come from the same, because I just chose to go to a university which this country has deemed to be the best in the top, and apparently you're supposed to be what the American dream, merit-based. You get in, you go, right? Opportunity. I don't deserve help. But a person in a similar situation, or even better than me, just because they went to a state school, deserves the help. That in and of itself is the criteria. Private or public. They disgust me. And it was very true, a point that was made. Rich kids go to public school. If you're only wanting to help with the money of $10,000, if your parent made under $125,000, why are you not stretching that to every student? Because those kids whose parents made less than $125,000 went to a private school has those loans. Still, they had to take out loans. The F? Did you think of kids who made under $125,000, they went to a private school and was like, oh, it's free. Come on in. He's evil. Like, the fact he thinks he's playing us for stupid. Period. Because he's disingenuous. He doesn't want to actually do the help. That's all it clarifies to me. Biden, he is an evil warmonger. He likes the crippling debt and how it affects the society and how it keeps people, those who are not originally from the 1% there down, right? That's it. And he wants to at least say that he did maybe a little something. This man he made it so that we could not write off our student loans in bankruptcy. Thank you, Biden, but he let all those evil, disgusting people with the mortgage crisis, they got all the money back. Nobody went to jail. They didn't have to pay for their crimes. But you wanted education and you came from a lower income family where you were literally taught, not just by your parents, but by society as a whole, me, everyone. Go to a good school. That's where you go. And then now to turn around and say, well, actually, no. You're not deserving because what? You got to experience learning around rich people or a rich campus. And we don't even go into all that, how people of color, Black people, students feel when they're on these campuses. But now you're even saying those students are not deserving. Absolutely sickening. One second. Hey, so I'm reading the chat, y'all. I get on my rants, and so I need to check chat more. That's crazy. Hey, I'm confused. What are you confused about, Ice Ghost? We're currently talking about Biden at the town hall where he said that people say he revoked the 50,000. He was like, no. You think I really am going to use this endless amount of money that I have access to and help you without making it seem like we're ridiculous? What? You want to take away from elementary school, like not lower education. All the words are leaving me. He really did. He tried to play it like either we give you student loan debt or that's coming out of the money that we're putting into not lower education. Is it called lower education? Bruh. But like elementary school. Absolutely sickening. And his logic is absolutely disgusting. Biden is the word. Like, he is awful. He is a liar. I'd rather you just tell me to my face to go kick rocks. Where did you ever think in your little cute head that I was ever going to eliminate student loan debt and act enough to the point where it would free you financially? Like you wouldn't be crippled? Excuse me, we're America. We run on debt slavery. We run on wage slavery. Like how in the world would we be America if we eliminate the debts? Literally our evil oligarchs, we created this system so that we continuously always will thrive off of humans indebting themselves for things that they need to survive. That is America. Slavery just evolved. It never went away. And it grew to encompass more people. This is where poor whites come in. It says, oh, I'm Scottish. I don't bother with that. Right? UK. Must be nice. We suffer here. We really, it's just, and the more access to truth and knowledge that we have of the other parts of the world and what can be, is maddening because you realize you're literally being lied to all the time. You are literally lied to all the time. Growing up. We can't do that. Or you have this. Actually, let me see if I can find. Let me see. I want to see if I can find it where it says it would be under CARES Act. Federal Reserve.
Oh, I'm back, by the way. I had to take a couple bites of the sandwich.
I understand. Alrighty. Here you go. Federal, how would I word it? Maybe it would be better as a Google search and then I can find it that way. But the guy goes on and is like, how would I word it? It was a news broadcast and it was like guy from Federal Reserve explains CARES Act.
Are you talking about the one that was just like, I'm just gonna change the numbers a bit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think my audio is working. Is it? Well, actually.
Yeah, it's working.
Oh, okay, I got it. I could try to find it for you.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. Actually, that would be fantastic. I can talk about in the chat. It's free education here. And it says, is it good? It's brilliant. And free. That's amazing. Here in my country, we have colleges where you can pay what you can. What country? Nino Power? What country are you from? Where you pay what you can. Because that's not the case here. But essentially it's just bad. Like you realize, and I want to go into these topics, like diving into truth. Again, call this woke millennial stream. Want to wake some people up. Like a lot of the things that we were taught and how we were taught them were lies, right? And they don't make sense to the result of where we are now as a nation, right? And it's something that just clicks when you get truth and you understand the why, right? And I think the worst part is when they're able to trick us into hoping. But when you realize the patterns and how this country has worked and played on our ignorance, on our emotions, on our hopes, it makes you wiser. Like, no, you're not going to play me like this. Okay, you said you're going to do this, but watch you not do it because you're a liar. And then when you see them not do it, you're just like, okay, yeah, that made sense. It feels so much better to be on that side than hoping and hoping, like, there's hope in the system, we can do it. And then again, another no, another we were lying, a little gotcha. Those suck. And I feel like that is what Biden is. He's a facade. And in many cases, hey, look, for me, I see it for what it is. The Republican Party and Democratic Party, they're both oligarchs. They're run by oligarchs, and it's just two different of the same game. They just have different roles to play. And that's why you'll have a Nancy Pelosi go out and say, we need stronger Republicans. Why? Because it makes their part of the game easier to play with their plausible deniability. Because they're supposed to be seen as the more progressive side. They're seen as the ones that are fighting for good. So it gets those of us in the masses who watch them, who support them, right? Those of us who have empathy, for others, or we see people who are struggling, and we feel that it should be better and it can be better, and we shouldn't support things like systematic racism, for example, or we shouldn't support things that take away humans' rights, or we should throw them in cages. The people at the top, those, I call them devils. And my reason being is because, scripturally, what is the devil? The devil has come to kill, steal, and destroy, right? What else does it say about the devil? It says the devil is a liar, right?
I found that YouTube video.
Yay! And that, just real quick before we go to that, all of those things, and I hate how in religion, and again, how media works and propaganda, all this stuff, we think of, oh, a devil is this mystical being. It's over there, like, when they're talking about, like, the people in, or back in times, right? Oh, it's this little made-up figure or spiritual. Excuse me. What on earth can lie to you? Anything that you've ever encountered, what lies to you but a human being? Kill, steal, destroy. It says to beware of the devil. Why? Wolf in sheep's clothing, the master deceiver, trying to warn us of people. It's people. It's a spirit. People. Now, most of us, we're not sociopaths. We're not psychopaths. They use the fact that we're not those things to make us believe that they are, right? Or they aren't either. They're just like us. And that allows us to get away with so much more. And again, going back to what different heads of the same coin. I don't know how that saying goes. That's why we see nothing. Very little minimal changes. That's why we see people who actually want fundamental change killed, right? We see the Fred Hampton movies, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, right? So they can take the place of it and say, it's okay, we are that. But then move the absolute slowest or do absolutely nothing and give plausible deniability. There'll be a little bit of change for plausible deniability, but there has to be a poser, right? Oh no, the Republicans are in charge now. Oh wait, we're split half and half. But when we do have both houses in the Senate or whatever, for the Democrats, watch how nothing happens. Because that narrative, they never wanted it to be free. Like the oligarchs never intended for the Democrats that they pay to do things that would enact fundamental change for their what? Wage slaves. The middle class, the poor. Never. So it gets in an awkward situation. They have to go back and forth. There has to be an opposition. So right now we'll have the one guy in the Senate, mansion, and we'll have a Biden. There you go. They have their, think of it as a chess game, right? Chess. They have those two parts. They're there to disrupt the board, to stop any real progress from happening. But watch how quick they will give money. Again, money that we're about to see in this video. Or where did you send it?
Discord.
Let me head over there real quick. But they'll literally, and that's what I'm saying, going back to the kind of town hall and playing us for stupid. I never, again, and I tell it to you all, always think politicians are smarter than they are. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt. In very little instances, they know more than you. Period. When it comes to things like legislation. They have access to people who can get them those results or those answers to any of the questions they need. They don't do it because they don't want to. They will sit here and post on Twitter. I know I'm on a slight rant, y'all. Here, I cannot stand to see these progressives on Twitter. All they do is they use the truth against us. We as human beings, we are truth seekers. Period. We're truth seekers. Something about truth, when we hear it, it resonates in us. And they know that. And they can use that to twist, right? Twist the message or to get you to move in certain ways that they want you to move without actually doing the right thing. What I mean by that, I cannot stand to see all these senators who will come on there and say, we have to give $2,000 a month minimum. We should have reoccurring checks. Everyone, no one should be waiting in long lines for food. No one should be without power. All they're doing is reciting things that we already know. I can agree with you. You're not telling me how you're going to do it. You're not saying who's in the way. You're not saying why we're in this state and how you're going to go and dismantle. All you're doing is telling me things that I already know. You're trying to, so I can just click and say yes. Of course, yes. Yes, queen. Oh, kids shouldn't be in cages. But you have a Democratic president now, and those kids are still in cages. He said he was going to defund the jails, private, until you read the fine print. They're not trying to kick those kids out of cages. And I thought that that they would actually do it. So I'm shaking the thing. It shows the amount of power that the media has to brainwash us into thinking of hope. Instead, we're wasting all our time hoping for better when literally it's not going to come. And that could have all been time of thinking of ways to actually enact positive change. But they use us. They use us so badly. And it's disgusting to me because you could only be in office for so long before I am expecting results, or I'm expecting you to open up your mouth and to say why and whom and actually walk on it. And I don't know how many of y'all are watching, but I was very much a forced voter. And when I saw them for me, the biggest thing that's gotten me so upset when it comes to the Democratic Party and those that call themselves progressives, I'll find them as, was when you saw what they did to Bernie in the primaries and how they all backed Biden. It disgusts me. They make it as always seem as though you only have one choice or another choice. I refuse to be backed in a corner. There is more than one. What they could have done, it could have been a mass movement of right in the name. We could have had a mass movement, but they put in your mind that it's impossible and it never happened. No. You have to concede. You have to bow down, even if he stole, right? Or they manipulated the election to have people drop out all at once. Sorry. You still had to do what we told you. Oh, you little cute kids. Look at y'all wanting health care. You thought we were about to give up our billions? And you know what the progressives did? Rolled over and said, vote for Biden. We don't ask Biden anything of concessions to give him before our vote or to our endorsement. We'll do whatever. And people don't wake up and see that that's not who they are. When someone shows you who they are, tells you who they are, believe them. So there goes that. Big is eye-opening. I was so disappointed. The CARES Act, they're trash. All of them. All. They literally handed over the money, knowing. And this is another thing, too, that I do talk about. Corporate-owned life insurance. They gave them all that money, knowing that what they were doing for the people was going to be only for a short, minimal time and not actually helping them. and this whole back and forth, mask, no mask, oven mandates, all this stuff, that thinking there was a choice. No, it was all being done on purpose so that it can continue to spread and spread and spread. And if you didn't know this, I've gone into it in my other streams. Corporate-owned life insurance, look it up. Corporate-owned life insurance. Corporate-owned life insurance, also known as COLI. Did you know that if you have worked for a Fortune 1000 company, or if you work for many, there is a high likelihood that that company has life insurance policy on you? Do you work for, let's say, Walmart, let's say, or Best Buy, or J.C. Penney's, or any of those, or gas stations? Life insurance policy. Now, are you young? And no, it's on everybody, right? These rank and file workers. You don't know that. It's legal. But when you, or if someone you know who worked for them died, and let's say that you've worked for multiple companies. Oh, they all have a bag over your head. Bag on you. And what perfect plausible deniability for those with the mass public does not know about this disgusting immoral act where we literally make money off of the worst tragedy people's death. Now have a pandemic come in as the perfect plausible, perfect scenario if people had mass numbers of corporate-owned life insurance. What else could be plausible deniability of a pandemic comes and we just didn't know what to do and people just died? We didn't force them to die, but we didn't give them, we denied, we waited forever to tell people, mandate putting their employees to put on masks, did not social distance, listen to nothing, because they wanted the spread. They wanted the spread. 500,000 people gone. On average, if you're older, these companies could have, and depending on the company you worked for, and note multiple companies could have a life insurance policy. They all get paid when one dies. When grandma died, they all cashed in. A parent died, they cashed in. Siblings, cashed in. Are you allowed to know will you get that? No. They say it's because you didn't pay into it. Why do you care? Someone else paid. Oh, could it be that maybe our society has an incentive for mass death, and maybe that it's bad because if something like a pandemic came in and these people were willing and they're not spreading that it would spread? It's interesting how America has the most deaths out of everybody. I wonder why. Maybe it's because our politicians, oligarchs know a little bit more. That there's money, they're making money. I'll call it the black market, whatever. And it's legal in America. They just have to pay a tax on it. And they don't have to legally list it. And I can literally go into it. It's disgusting, you guys. Please look into it. I said it all makes sense. Learned that in February, and then I saw what they did with the CARES Act. These politicians know that there's corporate-owned life insurance, and did you know Georgia is the most lax? And do you remember it was Georgia? That was the whole no mask, no, we stay open, we want to work. They made that lie plausible deniability because people did want to work, and they purposely did not give people money to stay home because they wanted people to catch it and to spread it, period. I'm done. Now, I'm going to the Discord. I'm sorry, y'all. I hope y'all are... I hope you guys are enjoying the stream. And if you are, of course, if you like what you're seeing here on this stream, hit the follow, right? Our goal is to get to 50 followers so that we can level up and become Twitch. What's that word called, Matthew?
Affiliates.
Affiliates. That's the goal. All right. This here.
Is that tax money?
Now, going back to what Biden had said, zero sum. If we give you money, eliminate student loan debt, we're taking away money from, oh my gosh. What's that word called? He said it. Oh, it's going to irk my nerve if I don't get it. Your secondary education, higher education. What's the first? Primary education? Maybe that's the word, primary education. Nino, Power, does the U.S. have debts? Yeah. Well, what you learn in econ is that that's not a negative. But it was the Tea Party, apparently, that that propaganda that brought in this idea of the deficit, because people didn't know how econ works. But again, what we'll see right here, what I'm about to show. Oh, here, sorry. Let me show this on the desktop. What I'm about to show here. Money is fake. It's a lie. We could literally be having every $2,000 checks to stay home. They don't want it. We're another type of sociopath, like the country. Until we come to terms with the fact that we have been a nation run by psycho and sociopaths, though for years, who thought it was perfectly, or didn't think it was fine, who enjoyed, relished, loved having control over other humans. They mutilated. They forced labor, sex slavery, child slavery, sex slavery. That's who these people who the founders were. Despicable. So we can't even comprehend on the same level. Lest you can go up to someone, look them in the face, and then beat them to death if they took an apple if they were hungry. These are the rulers that we let it happen for hundreds of years. We are run by socios. What we as a country have done the best at, the oligarchs, as palatable. They changed. They saw that it was a weakness, that the cruelty they were doing was so blatantly obvious, right? Because they knew that once people heard about it, right, they were able to use it up north. Oh my gosh, what? These things are happening to black people? And like, what? Who didn't see it happening every day. That could be something. So they, after the Civil War, they knew it had to be different. It had to be covert, right? They had to have plausible deniability. And thus they did. Oh, well, in America, you gotta work for what you get. If you don't have it, well, just use somebody else, borrow the money. So what they did was freed 4 million enslaved black people with no plan after, because of course they didn't care about black people. That was just plausible deniability, period. Don't let them tell you any different. No plan after, 4 million. Then they allowed those same people that they fought against, the evil people who were non-Americans, to write the laws for those people that apparently they knew were being horribly mistreated, and they said they had a whole war for. Oh, they allowed people, those same evil masochists, psychopaths, to write the laws to govern. And essentially knowing that without having any type of other employment or any means to create a path for wealth, like giving land, giving tools, right? For people who actually want to right the wrong, if they actually did wrong, they know they did wrong. They didn't do that. They had it so that you go back to the plantation and you won't be a slave, but you can work the fields. Oh, you're going to need equipment for that? Oh, you need food and like just other things, a marketplace? You have no money. You won't have any money. What we'll do is we'll write up a little tab. Get you a little tab. Oh, and then interesting enough, there goes, you're back into the grips of the slave holder. But it feels different. It's plausible deniability. You're not a slave. You're working. But can you get upward mobility? No, you're starting off in debt. Everything you need in order to survive, you have to pay for. These are the same psychopaths. We're here today, it's just evolved. And it included poor white people. Which is, again, you feel and we understand why poor white people in America, when it comes to when they hear about, oh, black people, it's not just like there's this kind of, it feels almost like a war of who's the most oppressed and like, I don't have white privilege, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. Yes, you're right. But no, in the fact that poor and poverty is a class war. They saw you, they said, sorry, it looks like we were caught with the whole being horrifically evil and heinous humans. We got caught, but we still need to make up our money, so we got to bring up our numbers, right? If we have to, what better way to include more and add more white people into it? And again, same mindset. It's just changed to be less gruesome, and include more people. So now we have things like $50,000, $100,000, and $200,000 in student loan debt instead of debt to the plantation because you had to get it in order to make a living, right? Like the enslaved did in this country. You know, the land of the free. Anyway, let's hear how money is a joke.
That the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money.
Is that tax money that the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
Okay. I feel like that was it, but there's a longer clip of it.
I'm glad to
What in
see
the
my
world?
friend.
Is that tax?
Almost kind of. Was this on part 1?
Yeah, that's the whole video. It was just a little bit hard to find that specific clip.
Was that this? Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd probably be hard. Why not?
Aside from the president, he's the most powerful man working to save the economy. But
Session coming to an end probably this year. We'll see recovery beginning next year. The issue is the banking system and the financial system.
unemployment as we sit here is about 8.1%. I wonder, do you expect double-digit unemployment?
I think, again, that if we do succeed in stabilizing the financial system, that we'll begin to see a slower pace of decline and eventually a stabilization that will set the basis for a recovery.
You seem to be saying that we're not heading into a new American Depression.
I think we've averted that risk. I think we've gotten past that, and now the problem is to get the thing working properly again.
Ben Bernanke.
Okay, no. This is a 2009 clip. The clip that's looking for from this year. I feel like the guy was younger when he said it, but I meant there goes that. They just literally type in the number and doesn't take from the taxes. Federal Reserve. So I don't think that's exactly the clip that we're looking for. And when I find it, I'll never let it go. Because I reference this clip. I know watching the progressive shows, back in March, or I think it was back in March, April, they had that clip on there and they were talking about how, again, it's a joke. Money, they literally can just write it in. They just wrote in the money, boom. They needed to save the stock, or Wall Street, the stock market. And they just pumped it in. It didn't come from our tax dollars, and it didn't add to inflation rates.
I mean, I think that's kind of the lie, is that it does, and it does affect the inflation rates. They're just willing to go and just let the Federal Reserve handle that and just change the numbers. If the bank says they need this much, they just go in and change the numbers, and the bank has that much.
I don't know.
Whereas, if you wanted to end the homeless crisis and there was a certain amount of money that was needed, there's no one that could just go change the numbers there, end homelessness. But if the banks are in trouble, there's someone there that can easily just go change the numbers.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. Nope. This is be difficult to find. CARES Act, Federal Reserve. How would I? It's all about wording things correctly. The Federal Reserve gives yeah. Okay, so I guess next time we stream, which should be tomorrow, I can try to look it up and see if I can find the exact clip I'm talking about. So that way we kind of have better understanding on, again, the truth, and we can learn and grow together on this stream. So, man, I really wish. I have to look through the archives. I guess taking us back to good old Biden. Let's actually take a listen again.
The American dream is to succeed. Are crushing my family, friends, and fellow Americans.
Me too.
The American dream is to succeed, but how can we fulfill that dream when debt is many people's only option for a degree? We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen. Depends on whether or not you go to a private university or public university. It depends on the idea that I say to a community, I'm going to forgive the debt, the billions of dollars of debt for people who have gone to Harvard and Yale and Penn and schools my children. I went to a great school. I went to a state school. But is that going to be forgiven rather than use that money to provide for early education for young...
Liar! You snake and deceiver! F you, Biden! F you! F you! Like, just even a little brain thing, like they're creating a, trying to do the rhetorical triangle, right? First you get your ethos. He'll say, oh, I went to a public school. My children, I guess, went to, I think he was about to say, went to public school or private school, but he went to say, to praise public schools. And note, he went back a long time ago. Okay. And how he'll use children. Now we're going into pathos, right? Why would you, people who are we're leaning on the idea that people who went to these Harvard, Yale, that they must be rich or wealthy or come out of that with a high paying job. All these things are not true, not facts, and they're not the same for every single person that's gone in. So he is being very disingenuous here. And two, if you are rich already, why do you still have student loan debt? If anything, it could be the people who just graduated, right, if they're doing so well. So he's being disingenuous, but he's trying to use that pathos. Now he's going to talk about the children. Oh, we can't take away from the children for rich people. But again, the people who need the help aren't the rich people, or their debt's already paid off. Did you know that poor people from poor families go to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton? Are they undeserving of help? And note that that's not even a huge majority of those who go to a private university. Those are the minority. But even knowing that those who do go to these big private universities who come from low income are a small fraction, he doesn't even want to add them in and say people of public schools and private schools who made under this amount of money, or parents who've made or come from a household that makes this amount of money. He's being purposely disingenuous. And he's hurting people like me right now with his words. His evil words. Disgusting words. You can put money, hello, president of richest country in human history. You can help the infrastructure of primary education and also forgive debt. You know why? You gave $5 trillion to the richest people in the country within the last 12 months. And I didn't have to hear about a wine. I don't even know what the prerequisite was. That money was given so fast to them. But I have to hear him talk and try to use his, getting the consent. What would you call it? Manufacturing consent right here. Try to convince, oh, you're right. Maybe we don't deserve $10 or $50,000 eliminated of student loan for a thing. It's not like we got this money and like anybody, all Americans that are just in debt, right? For anything, right? If you wanted to go and buy a Ferrari car, we'll write that debt off. No, these are people who we were taught as kids to go work hard in school, go into a top university, right? And that there'll be a job. You'll get a good paying job. And like I said earlier in the stream, that's not the case now. It's not true. But he'll figure this all out in a lie and make his points based upon a lie, a constructed narrative to try to make you feel that you don't deserve or others don't deserve help. And like going back to that, I think you mentioned it earlier, and from countries that do have healthcare, it's ridiculous. By covering the rich, is that taking away from something else? Do we view it that way? Like, if you can, fine. But these things are rights to education and learning. If you had it to be able to get there, and again, this whole system's flawed, the education system's flawed, and we won't get on there, but just bear with me. You made it there, that's cool, that's fine. Why are you now in crippling debt when Biden, you didn't have to be in crippling debt back when you were a kid or when you were younger? You socio. But you're saying we have to. And then you made it so that we could not even file bankruptcy on that debt. Disgusting snake. But hear him try to convince. Let's finish.
Children who come from disadvantaged circumstances. But here's what I think. I think everyone, and I've been proposing this for 4 years, everyone should be able to go to community college for free. For free. That costs $9 billion, and we should pay for it. And the tax policies we have now, we should be able to pay for it. You spend almost that much money as a break for people who own racehorses. And I think any family making under $125,000, whose kids go to a state university they get into, that should.
He's so, I can't. Just knowing that he's our leader. We moved on from Trump to this. So again, I have
very marginal.
Very marginal. I dare, in fact, believe that nothing will fundamentally change. What about you, Matthew? Are we going to take those words?
It's kind of what he said, right?
That is what he said. So when someone tells you who they are, who are we going to believe? Even though it's hard to take, we hate it. But one thing I know, I expect. What do devils do? It'll still destroy. They lie. And if there is some good, not saying it can't be completely pure awful because it's too obvious. Going back to how slavery is too obvious. No, it was explicit. They would get called out by the many. Kind of make it subliminal. We'll do change. Like they'll talk about it and they'll go back and forth for months over giving a $2,000 check, which they lied about, and it's for $1,400. But completely not talk about how other places and other people around the world is taking care of their people so much better than we are, and they have so much less money. We can't even fathom what it looks like if we, the people, could partake in even a fraction of the amount of wealth we generate for these corporations. If it was actually, we saw it in the infrastructure, we saw it in our day-to-day lives. I don't even think we could understand. We'd be looking around and be like, we are killing it, and compared to the rest of the world, like, why isn't everybody, like, America? But we don't see it that way. Even though the Hollywood likes to make it seem that way with with the American dream. Oh, come here, the immigrants. No, the oligarchs evil people who've been ruling us for a long time, they do everything for low-wage workers. Immigration, that whole idea, the country that, again, was very racist, built, suddenly just says, give us your hurting and you're sick. Let us. Why? Because we know when you get here, there's a trial period, and you're going to be treated like an immigrant. And now this is back. They can pay you less wages, right? They wanted to continue have an influx of low-wage workers. But we'll switch it, and again, they like to brand it as, see, and of course, some like immigrants have been able to uplift, right? What we saw was people earn their whiteness, right? Because there was a time Irish people weren't considered white, Italians were considered white. They earned their whiteness, right? And they moved up, right? They were allowed to elevate. So there is that piece of truth that can be pulled. All the while, the evil that was being done and those who suffered in the amount of mistreatment gets overlooked. Story. Keep pushing. It's because there's a juxtaposition. Evil and good. America did so much for the world. We're also all over there with our military. We're the biggest givers and philanthropists. But aren't we this? It's always a this, that. Boom, boom. It's the yin yang. Power, if you see it on YouTube, maybe you can find it on your histories of watch videos. That's true. I can try to do that. I feel like if I do it now, I know the videos were back in March and April. And I've watched a lot of videos since then. But maybe that could help. I'll try to search in some keywords. Like I think at the time Jimmy Dore talked about it a lot. I think of TYT, they talked about that clip as well. Kind of just showing how they can just write X amount of $1 trillion and to the stock market, but we have to beg for $1,200. Yeah, that still holds true even months after. They're able to do it then, they could do it now, and they know what they can do. But it's all to hold up this facade that money, there's only a finite amount of it. And if we go adding more, we could only do that for rich people. Or for the oligarchs, our friends. They like to say these words that are non-human, like corporation, healthcare industry, business, nonprofit, Congress, government. Those words are not human-based. So when we hear them, you gave money to these, or Wall Street corporations, instead of, you gave money to people who look just like you, who live in your neighborhoods, who live in your buildings, who go to your, the golf clubs, who you go on vacations with, you see randomly because you're all at the same 5-star restaurants. You're giving money to your colleagues. But we don't see it that way. We see it as, they wrote a regulation that helped this industry. Because you know why? They know the power in being incognito. They have just enough, a little amount of rich people on television that you see for us to not question and think, we do not know. There's over, a million millionaires? Like who own? I don't care how many you've seen on television. It's not a fraction to who they actually are and how many other are out there. We don't know their faces. We don't know how they look. They can be all among us. And they thrive off of that because we cannot pinpoint who they actually are. We know some CEOs of these social media networks. Do you know the person who's running the energy plant that's dumping chemicals in the water? No. That's just a corporation, right? Did you know that person is next door neighbors to X amount senator who's friends with them? We don't know. They live and they thrive off of that. And what we don't realize and that we constantly do is we'll say, they're helping out. No, they're helping out their friends. They're helping out those who are them. They are rich. They are sponsored by the rich. The reason there's never been a revolution in this country, there's never been a time where people who were not wealthy controlled it. It's always been the same. We've never changed. We've been held by the same captors for centuries. Now, that's not the case in other countries. Other countries, you have seen where there have been a people rise up and they have gotten power, and you've seen how they run. This country, no. We had wars, yes. We've had some changes, yes, that they've been able to brand and put in our books. Oh, Civil War ended. Change. Huge change. Revolutionary War. Change. Nothing's changed. Same type of people. Same socios. Just a little bit more clever. Are running things. So, sorry. Hello, Matthew. What are you? I'm gonna bring you in. I guess. Got any thoughts on the whole topic? Any more thoughts to add? I was like going tangents.
No, I guess I really said what I was gonna say in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some topics. As we head towards the to the end of a stream. Alright, we've been at trying to get on since, oh, it's 12? I thought it was 10. Hey, it's 12, 12:22. Let me try to think. Anything else? I think we had a really good stream today. I loved the amount of activity that's in the chat. I like the topics we talked about. From, should white, going into a world where, is it all right for white people to role play as black people, people of color? We've talked about the new game, what is it? Call of Duty game, 6 days, 60 days. What's it called, Matthew?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Oh, that's it.
6 days in Fallujah.
That's it. We talked about that, the problematicness and in the propaganda behind that game that's coming out. Talked about Biden's BS response when it comes to the student loan crisis and how he doesn't want to help. And he legitimate was like, I feel it. Will you hear what he said? One more time.
Loans are crushing my family, friends, and fellow Americans.
Me too.
He's disgusting. Disgusting. F you. F you. F you. I can't even, bruh. He said, she's here, one of the people. She don't look rich. She don't look like she was in places of power for 40 years. Said that we're being crushed. And what can he do? He can't even listen. He has to be a part of making bad himself. Me too. Me too. You're crushed by what? The fact that people are asking you to do something when you have every ability to do so? Like this? How dare you? How dare you, Biden, have the audacity to say, you understand, you too, like you're crushed. Shut up. Get out of here. Gosh, he makes me just something about Biden. He's just that wolf in sheep's clothing who's been there for years and have been groomed by the racist Republicans and Democrats of the time when he grew up. Literally, he was fun rubbing shoulders with segregationists. This one, who, again, I'll repeat, lied that he went to jail trying to see Nelson Mandela, who lied. He had to walk back the words. He said that he graduated the top of his class in college. He did not. He had to walk that back. He lied. Lies after lies. Like, no shame lies. He said that he was with the civil rights leaders and that he would go to those churches on Sundays and stuff. And black people for that time were like, no, we never saw him. He had to walk that back. And it's just sad. Americans really did let them believe them. I feel like it just shows to the extent of the brainwash. Americans really did. Like, and just how powerful the media is. And how much people like this feeling of safety and security and that people aren't lying to them. Biden, he's the best thing of beating Trump. I don't want to have Medicare for all. I love insurance companies who are making the most money ever off of not insuring people during a pandemic. I would vote for that guy because he's going to win. Literally. Like, it's sad. It's literally that you see the devils in the media because, again, oligarchs control the media, period. Just convince people. Like, it's almost like watching people convince someone out of thinking that they needed food to live. Just give me all of your food. Like, you'll get a better, like, and they take it. You literally are convincing them of their own, like, to do and partake in their own downfall is essentially what that's the extent of the psychopathy. Psychopathy? What the words? Tongue-tying. Of our system. Matthew, you're still with me?
Yep.
But alright. I guess that's about it for our stream. I feel like I have nothing else to talk about. Again, if you're watching, thank you. And if you love the stream, hit that follow button. Again, goal is to reach 50 followers so we can get to the affiliates level here on Twitch. We should be streaming tomorrow as well. We ended up getting a later start because it was technical difficulties, but we should be on tomorrow, give or take 4 o'clock, around 4. So keep your ear out for us there. Hit the follow button, and yeah, have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Matthew, for joining me on the stream. We will see more of you. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. Until next time. Is my parting words? Oh yeah, follow us. Yeah. Follow on Twitch. Follow on Instagram. I think you'll see that in the channel descriptions. Yep. Anyway, bye guys.